Oh, we're here. Yay! Another day, another week.
Simon tells me he has control. Look what happens.
It's right. Look, I'm all Christmassy. It's all good.
Too
Merry
much
Christmas, everyone.
eggnog.
Not yet. Not
You're
yet.
cut
It's
off.
coming soon. Right. Let's get going. Welcome everyone to the stream. And today we're going to be talking about deployment, that all important thing. So I hope you've been reading chapters 16, 17, 18. We're going to be talking about them today. And let's get on our hosts. We'll bring up some slides and we'll go through everything and we'll just dive straight in. So I heard Danielle. Danielle, hello. Welcome to the stream.
Hey everyone. Hi. Sorry I wasn't here last week. I'm glad to be back and welcome to the ultimate episode of the Flutter Apprentice Book Club.
And I think we have some other people here. Who is actually? I thought Esra was around, but I can't see Esra.
She should be in here.
I can't see Esra in the thing. So
she's not in Meet either.
There she is. Esra. There she is.
Hey, I'm here. Okay. Welcome everybody. So we are back with the deployment episode.
So I think we'll keep. We've got a slide in the normal slides for housekeeping, so we'll get to that as we go. And I think the slides will be. I'll bring the slides up and then leave this sort of stream to you guys. Okay.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Cool.
And I definitely want to say to Simon and Scott and everybody, though, I want to say thank you very much for loaning us Hump Day Q&A to have this book club. It's been an amazing experience. So thank you for that. And yeah, we've got our slides here. So welcome. This is chapter 16, 17, 18, deployment. That's our last episode. So it's been a journey, but we've gotten here. All right, well, this is the internet, unfortunately. So we do have some do's and we have some don'ts. And so what I want you to do is I want you to be nice and respectful and constructive while interacting on the YouTube live chat, social media. Be good people, you know. If it's adult content, rude or offensive, not safe for work, things like that, don't post it. We don't want that. This is not a place for you to advertise or promote stuff. We're actually going to have some, I think sometimes where we do want to talk about, you know, apps that we're publishing, and we want to make sure we deal with that. But for right now, don't advertise or promote stuff right now. Questions. For the questions, we'd like you to put a Q in front of the questions. So you can start getting those in soon, but if you put a Q in front of your question, it helps us find it easier, helps us get to it. So we want to display the question and stuff like that. But the other side of that is only post your question once. If you keep spamming the question, then that just it's taking up time for everybody else. It's pushing questions off the top. So please don't do that. That's the thing. And then finally, the last thing is I hate that we even have to talk about this in 2021, almost 2022, but harassment of any kind is not tolerated. So, you know, if you're talking on the stream, keep it professional, keep it kind, do not harass anybody. If you do, we're going to have to kick you out of here. And the Flutter community, one of the great things about it is it's a small community and we talk to each other. So that's, you know, like I said, I hate that we even have to have that conversation, but you know, it still happens almost on a weekly basis. So no harassment is tolerated of any kind. And that's it for our house cleaning.
Yes. So thank you, Danielle, for going for do's and don'ts for us. Now, I'd like to start with introducing Stef here. Sorry, Sarah here. So
hi.
Welcome.
Hi, it's so good to be here for the very last episode. This show has just been a blast to produce or not produce, but to, I guess, organize and get to meet so many neat people and yeah, share the Flutter love.
For any of you out there that don't know, this really happened because of Sarah. So
well,
thank you, Sarah.
It was definitely a team effort. So
no doubt, we get lots of people, you know.
Also, Craig. Let's bring Craig on to say because he is the workhorse here, doing all the content. So thank you, Craig.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a blast.
I think we've all learned a lot doing this. Like, I feel like I've learned a lot about producing YouTube shows and like how much time stuff actually takes. And it's been good.
I mean, I work at Google on Flutter and I learned a lot going through the book. So
there you go.
That's awesome. So what are you going to do next week, Craig?
Relax.
The laugh.
Yeah. Stare out the window. I don't know, something.
All right. And you've already met, I'm looking at the screen here, you've already met Esra and myself, we're the hosts. But I'd like to bring, okay, I was going to bring Stef up, but we can definitely.
You can take me off because I'm done.
All right, bye, Sarah. Sarah can go.
Bye.
Hi,
Hi.
Stef. Stef is our.
Oh, you changed the slides.
I know, but that's okay.
It's
But
okay.
You are our connection to Ray Wenderlich.
Yep.
You're of course also one of the leads for the Flutteristas with Esra and myself, and an always here resource for what we've been doing on the show. So thank you for that. And I think you maybe brought a person or two with you.
Pardon?
Did you bring anybody with you to share this?
Yes, I do. Today we have Cesare. He was our Final Pass editor, and without his project management, we could never have accomplished what we were able to do. So thank you, Cesare. And here's Cesare.
Hi. Well, thanks for the warm welcome. And yeah, I thought I'd stop by to say hi during the last meeting of the book club. And yeah, I just wanted to say that.
What you did?
Hello?
Can you hear me? Oh, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I just wanted to stop by for the last meeting of the book club. And just wanted to say thank you for all the work you did, for going through all the chapters and highlighting what we did together. It's been a great experience because I had the chance to work with great authors and editors, and that would have been a delight already. Plus, on top of that, there's this book club, so I'm really thankful and happy for how it's going. So look forward for the next edition of the book.
So
Yes.
Cesare, if I can ask, what is the job of a Final Pass editor?
So it's 50% project management, 40% psychiatrist, and 10%
He's not kidding.
editing. Before doing editing, I did writing, and so I'm familiar with all the struggles and the pain that writing clearly requires. So yeah, sometimes you have to tweak sentences, but sometimes you have to, convince an author of, rewriting part of a chapter or supporting him or her during tough times, like can't follow the schedule we agreed on. So many different things. So yeah, that's a psychiatrist's part in some sense.
And he was awesome. If as a tech editor, I, had questions and want to say, okay, am I losing my mind? Because I think it should be this way. And so he was a great sounding board, and I really appreciate that. I will be coming to you with questions because I've been asked to FPE another Flutter book. So I will definitely have some questions for you.
All right, now you're using jargon. What's FPE?
Final Pass editor. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And
What we're talking about.
Yep. I've done articles, but not a book. So we'll see how that goes. Fortunately, it's not a big fat book like ours.
So that's great. So thank you very much for popping up here for us.
Yes,
Cesare.
thank you so much for coming. Without you,
Yeah, I'll stay around for a bit. So if you have some questions, I'll be around for half an hour or so, and then probably have to go.
Thanks,
Sounds good.
Cesare.
All right, can we bring back up our slides? Okay, well, this is Sarah's part. Is Sarah available to come on for this, or do we need to cover it? We're going to come back to community resources. That's right. Okay, that's fine. Okay, well, on the slide zone, I remember for sure seeing also is we've got Randall behind the scenes. He's back answering questions, which is amazing.
Yes, thank you, Randall.
He gathers the questions up for us, but more times than not, he'll just throw the answer in there anyway for you. And that's Randall, and he is, so that's, yeah, absolutely. And put a Q in front of your questions. And I think that we may be at the point then where, let's go ahead and take a look at how to deploy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so Craig, can you go change your shirt for us?
Yeah, I need to real fast. All right, team, we have made it to the final session of the Flutter Apprentice, where we are going to actually land our app. And admittedly, this is a little bit academic because the APOD app is not really production ready. It's probably full of bugs. I haven't really tested it very much. In fact, it has no unit tests, so we don't even know that any of it works. And the whole thing was, just kind of a vessel for examples and a place to put some code that we could talk about. So it was never really destined to be a good app. And so because of that, there's a couple adjustments that we're going to make here. The book does an excellent job talking about how to prepare your app for the App Store and Play Store. And obviously, that's kind of the primary destination for most apps. But the APOD app that we've coded up, it's really unfit for those homes. But there's the web. And deploying to the web can look a lot of different ways, which is part of why the book actually didn't cover it. At least I imagine that's why the book didn't cover it. There's 1,000 ways that you could ship a Flutter app to the web, unlike the App Store and Play Stores, where there's one way. So we're going to deploy it to the web, and we're going to use Firebase hosting and see how that goes. And at the end, you'll see the domain, and you'll just be able to load it yourself. And you'll see that same UI that we've been working on. And you'll see that, by the way, adaptive design, which we've not really gotten to in this class or in this course. I don't know, what is this? Class, course? I guess it's a book club. In this book club, adaptive design is very important. Adaptive design is where you say, hey, these patterns that are great on mobile, they probably look silly on the web. I need to fundamentally adapt how I construct my UI based on my target platform. And we've done absolutely none of that. So there's a lot of reasons why this app is probably only destined for the web, which is where we're about to see it land. But let's do it, and that'll just kind of tie everything up for us. So, okay. Yes, the obligatory, I don't have my cursor on the right window. And we advance. So to deploy a working Flutter app to the web, especially if you've done any development with the web build, which we did a bit of all the way back in deep linking, to deploy a Flutter app to the web, you don't really have to write a lot of code, which is good. So we will look at the very small amount of code that I did have to write and change to get our app ready for Firebase hosting. And then we'll just look at what I did specifically. And it's not a complete, wonderful tutorial that I capture in screenshots, but don't worry, I link to one that I endorse, that I watched on YouTube, and I thought it was quite good. So let's look at some stuff. Code changes, there are only 2 parts. So in your web folder, you've got iOS, Android, web, Mac OS, however many targets you have in your project. In the web folder, there's an index.html file. And that is, you can edit that. It's not a generated file, or it's not a file that's regenerated. So you can edit this file. And it's copied over into your web build directory when you do actually run Flutter build web. But you can make changes to it. And so these are the only changes I had to make. For Google Sign-In to work, I had to add this part here, which was documented in the Google Sign-In packages README, which of course I had not read. So I was very confused about the error and Googled it. And then it led me back to the README, which was just like, hey, by the way, you're going to have to do this or you're going to have a confusing error. Well, of course, I did it the wrong order. And then down here, we actually add the relevant JavaScript SDKs for Firebase. If you're not using Firebase and you're not using Google Sign-In, you will likely have to do nothing in this spot. But we are using these two things, so we have to kind of connect a few dots for the JavaScript runtime. So I added these lines, and that was it. And then you used to add more in that file. You used to initialize your Firebase app, but the good folks at Invertase, I hope I said that right, recently updated that the implementation of the Firebase SDK in Dart, that is, and you can now, it's now web friendly. So I added this Firebase options line to the my Firebase.initialize app. And this whole options parameter and all of the values that are coming in here, and this one is a secret, by the way. All of the values that are coming in here are, they used to be pulled for web and iOS from those like Google Info and the plist files that you download, but the web doesn't have access to those. So you have to redefine them here. And this was in bootstrap.dart, you can see. So, you know, and this also just spelled out right in the Flutter Fire readmes. So this is where I got the info to actually do this. And if you click through the Firebase console, it will direct you to do things the old way. And you will actually need to, I think you will have to, I'm not certain, but if you want to use the newest Invertase Flutter Fire SDKs, I do recommend doing it this way because it worked. Okay, moving on. And that was the end of the code changes. I literally did not write any other code. And Firebase Console. Now we're getting into the actual stuff in the back end that I had, that I had to do. And you see this in any of the 12,000 tutorials out there on how to get Firebase hosting set up. Just kind of click on, add app is the first thing you want to do, and you make a web app. Before I had just iOS and Android. Those were where, and this, by the way, is to get Firebase auth and Cloud Firestore reachable, right? So we're basically telling Firebase auth and Cloud Firestore, hey, there's a new deployment, there's a new flavor of this app who's going to be talking to you. So this is different than Firebase hosting. But you can see actually they know you might want Firebase hosting. So it prompts you right here, and it's a good time to set it up. Okay, so you click through the wizard, basically just kind of do everything that it says. And then auth and Firestore will be ready to communicate with your web build. And then I ran into just mountains of trouble, which I've talked about a second ago with Google Auth. And all of this trouble stemmed from just not reading the Google Sign-In README. But I had to generate that. Let me flip back a couple pages. I had to generate this Google Sign-In client ID directly linked to from the README. So how I did this, not important right now. It's linked to in that README. And it was very straightforward. This one was a little bit less straightforward. I started to get an error that, what even was the error? Oh, Google Sign-In, when I clicked the Sign-In button, it was just erroring. And it was saying that my domain wasn't in an allow list, wasn't authorized. So I came in here and I realized all of these lines existed except this one right here, localhost with this port. And this is the port that Flutter had just randomly launched the web server on in that moment when I was testing it. So that was an accidental click. So I added this third line here, and you have to add the port that you're running on is what's going on. And this is also linked to from either the README or an error. I think it was from the README. It tells you that you have to do this. And this is in the Google Cloud Console at this point, not the Firebase console. But I added this third line, and then I knew that Flutter in your web runtime will just pick a new port every time. And this was taking a while to propagate, by the way. Like I thought it was broken. I had to go to the dog. I just left. I took my dog to the dog park, came back, and then it was finally working. Kind of like DNS taking a while to propagate is how it felt, even though it's certainly not those same mechanics. But anyway, so I was like, well, I don't want to be adding this all the time, new ports. So, and then I looked up this command, which is how I started testing locally henceforth. And I was just pinning this port number. And this port number is not special. It was just the one that was randomly chosen when I started doing this. So then I locked it in on the server side and on my dev side. And then lastly, it's time to start deploying, because then I got Google sign-in working locally, and I knew, well, I think we're ready now. So then you run Firebase Init on your machine, and you'll set up hosting. You might want Cloud Functions, depending on kind of what your needs are. But we only needed hosting to start. So Firebase Init is this really nice wizard. You answer some questions, and the specific answers to this, by the way, are detailed in the video that I'm about to link to. So you get to the end of Firebase Init, and at that point, you're darn close, because there's basically nothing else that you have to do except run Firebase deploy, and this only hosting flag is optional. But that will then round up all the files, and you can see here this build web directory. This is where you tell Firebase hosting that all the goods are, because that's where Flutter puts it when you run Flutter build web. Puts it in the build web directory. It's all nice, nicely named, actually. And then you're good. Then you get this showing up. This is the URL where your project is available, and you click on that app, or you click on that link, and you might have a couple errors to kind of troubleshoot Google and be like, oh, I got to do this thing. Okay. I certainly did. I did not just breeze through this deployment process in one go. I had a lot of random errors that I was Googling, and I tried to capture all of those to tell you about them. But before long, you'll see your Flutter app running at a random, a domain not on your machine. You can send it to people, and they'll see your Flutter app running. And this is deploying to the web, so pretty good experience. And there's web apps are a great target for Flutter. Flutter is a great choice for web apps, and I think at this point, we've listened to me just blather on and on and on for 10 weeks now, so don't need to belabor this. Let's have some good Q&A. Just kidding, folks. I'm back because I forgot the last slide, which is extremely important. It's the video that I promised. So this, where's the cursor? This video is what YouTube served me up. I don't even remember what question I was trying to answer when I looked at this, but or when I ultimately found my way to this. But the video was great. Walks you through literally every single thing step by step, all the things that I gloss over. This video hits very explicitly. So now it's time for questions.
Yeah, thank you, Craig. That was very informative as always. And I don't know who I'm going to watch next week on to learn my Flutter stuff. So that's good.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
So maybe we can call Sarah.
Hello again.
Hi, Sarah.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you, Craig, for that awesome deployment explanation.
Yeah. So Sarah, we pretty much finished the book. And so we're all experts. We can go on, just write our code, not have to worry about anything.
That's right.
Except it's not that easy. So when we do need help, we need to access resources and stuff, what should we do?
Yes. I would like to tell you about some community resources that you can use if this book went a little fast or you still have questions. I'm sure you all do. It's okay. I have questions. Craig has questions. Everyone has questions. Simon has questions. So let's let's find out where you can get people to help you, because there's lots of people that want to help you. So the first thing I want to do is tell you about the Flutter Meetup Network, which is a collection of meetup groups all over the world that are dedicated to Flutter. And you can tell I took the screenshot on my home computer because it's got the Norway one highlighted. But they're all over the world, different time zones, different countries, groups from, just 20 people to several thousand. And they're a really great place to meet people in your region that speak your language and, understand your culture, that are into Flutter and probably want to help you because they have spent the time to create a group and attend events and arrange events and things like that. So you can check it out. The link should be in the show notes and below. And if there isn't a group near you, then you can start one. And if you want to start it, reach out to me on Twitter. You can just DM me. And I'm kind of bad about checking it, but I will get back to you eventually. And now that I say that, I will promise you that I'm going to check it. And we can get you started with a sponsored meetup group, and you can be part of the network and get access to different resources to make arranging events even easier. And I should also mention that in Corona times, which it seems like we're sliding back into that, a lot of meetups have their events online, so that's no problem. And so the corollary of that is that if there is a meetup that's kind of near you, but is actually too far for you to attend physically, even if the event is physical, most of them now have an online streaming option. So you can still participate and be a member of a group, even if it's in another city that you can't actually get to. So anyways, that's the Flutter Meetup Network. Check it out. And if interacting with people socially is not your thing, there are lots of other ways that you can get help. So let's go to the next slide. I can tell you about all the other places you can go. So there is the book forum by Ray Wenderlich for readers of the book. So other students of Flutter that have been going through the Flutter Apprentice book, if you go to the book forum, there's other people reading the book as well as author, editor, people from Ray Wenderlich there wanting to help you. And of course, Stack Overflow is a good place to get answers to questions. There's some old classic ones already answered and new questions coming in all the time. There's an active community of people that like to answer questions, so you can go there. You can also, there's a community on Reddit, the Flutter Dev Reddit, and there's also the Flutter Community Slack, which has some, I don't even know now, 18,000 members and lots of channels for different topics and places that you can ask questions. And then there's a very similar Flutter Discord, very similar. And then, of course, there's here, where every week we are so happy to answer your questions. So if you are feeling stuck, my advice is try and solve it yourself. Try for a little bit, but don't let yourself be stuck for too long, because then that's just no fun. So try and solve it yourself. And if you're stuck for a while, then go to one of these places and get your help. So that's all I've got. So hi.
All right, great. Well, thank you very much. And Sarah, before we let you off here, I've got a question for you that came up in the chat.
Okay.
And the question is, are there special requirements on starting a meetup group? I can't find any in my area.
Aha. So good question. Not especially. You have to be enthusiastic about Flutter, and we really recommend getting a co-organizer, but you don't have to if you feel like you can handle it yourself. And if you want to join the network, we require that you agree to our code of conduct, which is very similar to the one for the show. And then also you have to host an event once every 3 months at least. More is encouraged, but in order to be an active group and get our continued support, it's once every 3 months. So if you think that that is something you can and want to do, then please contact me, John Zuka. Yes.
So how can they contact you?
How can they contact me? So you can see my Twitter handle, and that, can you see my Twitter handle?
Yeah.
There's my Twitter handle.
Yes, now.
So you can just DM me, and I will recognize your name from this, and we can take it from there.
All right. Well, great. Thank you very much, Sarah.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. And next, I'd like to bring Stef back on if we can.
Hi, did you miss me?
Of course I did. But Stef, I have some questions for you. I really do. I mean, as you know, as our Ray Wenderlich representative here, I know early on I was getting reports of possible errors in the book. What's the current status of that? And if someone still finds one, what should they do, et cetera?
So we have an errata link that I'm hoping is going to start scrolling across the bottom, or just, yep, there we go. And if you find an error, we are all human. We all make mistakes. Go to the that site, and it's also in the show notes down below, and submit your finding, what you found. But before you do that, please go through and scroll and make sure that it hasn't already been reported. Now, as for the ones prior to mid last week, we have fixed all those, and they are in the e-versions. I'm pretty sure that they're also included in the print version because it's then uploaded. Is Cesare still here? If so, can we bring him on? Hi.
Yes.
And Cesare actually is the one who, once the editor or the authors make their updates, and so they make their edits, and then Cesare and I go through, make sure that the edits are good and make sense and accurate. And then Cesare is the one who does all of the work getting everything merged. And that also is true for the materials. If you're using the current version, which is edition 2.0.1, make sure that when you're getting the materials, you're using the correct, oh, great, I forgot the word.
Materials?
Oh, you know, in GitHub, oh my gosh, branch.
Right.
Before Simon said it in my ear, I remembered. Anyway, so yeah, that's important too. But yes, I don't recall seeing a whole lot come in since we've made the update, which is awesome. Great jobs to our authors, but we do know we make mistakes.
All right, and the book is still free for a few more weeks, right?
It's free until January 6th, and the link down below, you can go there and get it, and it's available online for free, and I do encourage you to buy it. We definitely like it when you do that. One thing is that it's a community, so we have the forum that was listed earlier, so you can come in and you can ask questions, and it's things specific to the book. There's also a Flutter community in there as well, and not that we want to take away from, you know, the other Flutter community things, but when you're working with our articles or our books, then you're able to communicate with the authors and the teams that worked on those books and articles and video courses.
Yeah. So I would like to just say it's just full of people that are going through the same content as you.
Yes.
And at the same time, so it's really great place to also get help. And also, as Stef says, like the authors and editors are active there, just, you know, you can reach out them and get help.
And it's really nice because it can be very specific, because there's sections for specific books, and you can get directly to the team. There's ones where you can ask each article at the bottom. You know, there's a question and answer whenever there's an article posted. You can go down, click, and you can actually ask a question specific to an article that you're seeing, and also for the video courses. If you're a subscriber, you have access to various things. Maybe
the Discord.
And the articles are all free. Yeah. The articles are all free, and we also have a Ray Wenderlich Discord that there's a Flutter channel, and you have access to the Flutter team at raywenderlich.com, as well as everybody else who subscribes to our Discord.
That sounds great. All right. That sounds good. I guess if we want to just take care of one more piece of house cleaning, we could talk about the Patreon that we have at Flutter Community. Yes. And to do that, I want to point out to you the fact that there's a lot of people here that work really hard all the time to help make sure that your Flutter experiences are good. And at the Flutter Community, we're not members of Google like Sarah or Craig are. We all do this on our own, and we do it for you for free, like most of this kind of stuff. However, it's not free for us to do it. And so I'd like to bring up, I'm sure it'd be Scott, so he can tell us a little bit about the Patreon.
Patreon. What's Patreon?
Hi, Scott.
Yeah.
Hello. All righty. I'm going to have to, yep, there we go. Thank you, Simon. Slides. Yay, slides. All righty. Patreon. The reason that we're doing a Patreon, one of the reasons that we're doing a Patreon is we're hoping to be able to hire some help. We got somebody who's helping us out, and we'd like to kind of help them out, if you know what I mean. The reason for this is that we started the Flutter community about 4 years ago, and it was a nice little hobby project when everyone, well, wasn't working. Now that we're all working, it's getting a little tougher, and also it's really grown. To give you an idea of how it's grown, we've got things like the Flutter Community Medium, which only has about 500,000 minutes read every 30 days with, last time I checked, was about 1,300 articles. So if you want to learn just about anything on Flutter, you can probably find it there. Also, we have the Flutter Community Slack, which as of the time that was made, that slide was made, it had what, 15,000 members. Let me take a quick look right here, just out of curiosity. And come on, where are you? 16,970 as of right now. So who's going to be lucky number 17,000? Moving on. We also have the Flutter Community GitHub, which is where packages that were abandoned come to not die, but find new owners. And people in the community take them over and help keep them up so we don't lose these packages. Also, we've been behind things such as Hack 19, Hack 20. There's Hump Day Q&A, which you are watching a version of right now. And we've done things like having Googlers such as Kevin Moore, Miriam, also Chris Sells. Chris was here just a little while ago, in fact, talking about GoRouter. Then we've also got people running around speaking at meetup groups that are small, conferences that are large, other conferences that are large, such as, this is from Flutter Europe. This was from Android DroidCon in 2018 in London. You've already seen that one. And the Flutter Global Summit, which just happened last week, from Geekly. Then after Flutter Engage, we had a whole bunch of us together at one time, so it seemed like a waste not to put about a dozen of us up there on stage and get some people's questions answered. And before we did the Flutter Apprentice Book Club, there was also the 30 Days of Flutter, not to mention the conference, Flutter Vikings, and the only 4-day conference I've ever seen in my life, the Flutterista Conference. So again, you need to look at those videos if you're looking to learn anything on Flutter. I'm sorry, learn about Flutter. Yeah. So then there's more. Yes. I'm sorry this is dragging on, but yes, there's more. We've also got Jay for interviews with people like Nilay, Brian Egan, with Martin Jarrett of Nevercode, and Philip, who is loves Flutter, no longer at Google, and free to speak his mind. So check him out on Twitter. Then we've also got people doing videos, such as that ugly guy right there. And we also have, well, as you know, Hump Day Q&A. We're here most weeks. Unfortunately, sometimes not. Getting a guest can be a bit difficult, and people trying to keep up with all these different things and keep them managed and edit the articles, etc., etc. This takes a lot of time. So we are hoping that you all enjoy everything we bring you enough to support the community. And of course, there's an ugly mug right there that Simon fortunately just got rid of that was blocking the www.patreon.com Flutter_community. Make sure it's underscore. And give money, give lots, give often. So I think there's a level there called Scott's Beer Fund, but maybe not. I don't know. We'll check. And with that, I'm going to stop yakking, and we're going to bring on some people to answer your questions.
Great. Well, thanks, Scott. Like I said, it's important to know that you guys can help us out to keep helping you. So, and we appreciate whatever you can do. And so let's get to the questions. So if we can bring Craig back on, if we can bring Stef back on, bring Simon on. Scott just went away. Scott, do you want to be backstage or to be on stage for this? I'm fine either way. I guess we'll go with this, and we'll bring him on as appropriate. And let's get to some questions, maybe.
So I think I'll since Sarah's not around, I think I'll try and bring in the questions as we go. Let's see now. I want to actually mention when Scott brought out his stats, the community medium has got 2.4 million minutes over the last 90 days. That's a huge amount of minutes, and that accounts for 1.7 million views over the last quarter. And that's huge numbers. And thank you, everyone, and especially for the authors for the content. We just want to help it get out to the people. So there's one place where everyone can go to get those extra resources, tutorials, those all the extras that it's very hard for the Flutter team just to maintain themselves. So we try and do it as a community. Everyone write your articles, publish it for everyone. Everyone gets better. So there was a question at the very beginning for Danielle, I think. Here we go.
All right. Yeah, okay, so for me, all right, I mentioned something last week about the M1 chip and running Flutter. Yes, I do have my new M1 Mac. I love it so far. And can I give them any rundown as to what is needed to run Flutter on the Apple M1? Thank you, JNM307. So far, things pretty much work. So I would recommend that you go ahead and get the ARM versions of the software. They seem to be stable enough now. So I use IntelliJ or Android Studio, and both of those have ARM versions. I'm sure Visual Studio does too. There's parts of Flutter that are not native yet for it, but they run just fine. And
I just remember there is actually a support. I'm going to put the support link in the chat. There's a there's a wiki page that actually gives you lots more information and links.
Absolutely. The only issue I have run across is getting the Android emulators to work. And the problem is the fact that things seem to be really, really kind of gone toward on the x86 for those, and we just can't run those. So you have to run an ARM emulator, and that's really been the big issue I've had.
Yeah, I think the problem is you've got the emulators as far as I remember is you're emulating like on a M1 using an ARM processor.
Yes.
Using a x86 emulator that's going through Rosetta, translating to ARM back again.
That will not work.
And running that. And all those layers really slow things down.
But that doesn't even really work. Yeah, you have to use the ARM processor. Yeah, and it is supported.
You've also got those extra layers again, so it's just not as simple as it's. There's a difference between simulator and emulator. Emulator emulates all original hardware. Simulator just simulates. It doesn't actually try to be exactly one-to-one with the original hardware, meaning that
For example, your
iOS
separate
emulator
libraries.
will run a lot quicker than iOS phone normally because it's running your entire CPU. You don't get that with the Android stuff. So, if it is a problem, I'm sure you can find a second-hand Android device and plug it in or something like that.
And that's okay. So that's one thing that you can do is you can always just use an Android device and plug it in. The other thing I want to say though is and this is also to answer Nasser asked a question follow-up on this. It is already supported. It works. The only thing I can tell you though is I'm not quite positive how I made it work. So it's one of those I kept playing with it and working at it. So if I can figure out exactly what I did, I'll try to put something out there that shows a step by step of getting it set up. But I'm running an ARM emulator for Android, and everything seems to be working okay with it. Obviously, all of the iOS Mac OS stuff works fine.
I think the latest Canary builds, or at least the most recent Android Studio builds, support the M1, no problem with the emulator. I seem to remember seeing that they added that support. I mean, it may not be perfect; it's brand new, but
I had issues setting up my new one with that. The way it was, and like I said, it's kind of playing around.
You can if you are curious about trying to get commands work. I remember when I first got my M1, this was before official support in the SDK. I had to run certain commands through. You prefix your commands, so like Flutter command with Arch. So you do ARCH space -x86_64. Followed by your real command, and there's lots of documentation online. I'm sure you can find it. But by prefixing this, it runs the command through Rosetta. That forces that to be run a certain way, basically.
Right.
Might help.
I will definitely be reaching out to you guys. I ordered my M1. It won't be here till Valentine's Day, but
the key with a lot of this stuff, right, is that the more people that use an M1 for development, the more they're going to support in the development tools and everything else. And
when I got my M1 Mini, last year, this stuff wasn't even possible. Some of it, with the emulation. So it's definitely gotten better. And back then, you had to run your IDE, through Rosetta, etc. So it's gotten a lot better over the last year.
So I want to add something here. I think I got my M1 around August. And I definitely agree with Simon. I just remember that I used some comments for the Arch, like gem incel, had trouble with the Cocoa Pods, and had some trouble with Cocoa Pods, but I'm not using the Android Studio. I'm using Visual Studio Code with the iOS simulator, and it's just charming. Now, I don't know. The Android part was quite problematic for me. To just make it run, to make it run Android Studio, it's still problematic for me. I'm not using it right now currently.
Okay, so I think...
by the way, Simon, I just wanted to go back because I did a little bit of math while everybody's doing stuff. 2.4 million, or 2.4 million minutes is a little over 4.5 years.
Wow, there you go.
So,
that's amazing.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so
just a bit.
All right, Alan Hill's got a question for us. He says, "How would I implement dev test production environments for a Firebase app?"
I can tell you how I've done in the past, if that's helpful. I would normally set up multiple projects, so multiple Firebase projects, one for each of the environments. This keeps them because because when you add users, you're adding them to that whole project normally. You can give finer control, but it's like the dev environment can have anyone attached to it. You can mess up the Firestore database, you can corrupt it. It doesn't matter because your production is on this other project over here, and that's secured. You're maybe the only one that's got access to that. You're the one that does the deployments to production. You got CD set up properly so it will deploy. Yeah, that kind of thing. It does, however, pose problems because you got different those configurations that Craig showed at the very beginning of the video, where you have like your client ID, push token, or whatever, push key, and all these other sender ID and all this kind of stuff for Firebase. That's different for each one of those projects. So you have to normally set up flavors, and there's documentation on the Flutter website, on the Flutter.dev, under I think deployment actually, you set up flavors, and that's you set up normally a flavor for dev, test, and production. And then each one, if you're doing the Android iOS route, then you would have schemes on iOS. They're called they're called schemes, compilation schemes inside of Xcode, and you can set up different parameters in your configuration, and that allows you to actually reference different files. So when you reference that, there's like a Firebase plist file. Is someone off? Did I miss something?
No, I just have something to add. It's like I put my hand up because I have something specific to what you're talking about.
Oh, go for it. Jump in.
So I am editing an article right now that talks about all of this. So keep your eye on the raywunderlich.com/flutter. And just as a heads up, I'm working on something on that.
It's complicated is the fair point. And there's so many different ways of doing it. And this the thing, when you're dealing with Flutter, you're dealing with one set of and one way of doing things. It's nice and simple. But now we're getting to that deployment stage. You're deploying to each different platform, and now you're doing those platform specific behaviors. So like I think it's mentioned in the book about splash screen and icon, right? These are things that are very specific to the deployment of that application. So changing the icon on Android won't change it on iOS. You have to go into the iOS Xcode stuff and there. And same goes for web. You have to edit the manifest file, change your PNG files, and do your icon on there. And the same thing happens for splash screens and various other platform-specific behaviors. But once the app is launched, obviously it's using Flutter's rendering system, and therefore, it's all the same. But up until that, different. Kind of went off on one, but yeah. So multiple projects. That'll get you on the way, and I'm sure there's articles actually on the Flutter community Medium that actually talk you through this. So do some googling. So if you Google like Flutter community Medium environments or flavors, I'm sure you'll find lots of articles. I'm pretty sure I've seen them. Anyone else want to add anything? Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the answer. Yeah, so if anybody wants to go for backstage, and I want to call Sarah and Scott here, I think they are also ready to jump over.
I actually think that while they're coming up, I've had a little bit of a rough week, and so I think I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. But I want to say
thank you for all your hosting, Danielle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You were awesome.
For everything you have done, and we look forward to having you back on Hump Day Q&A.
I look forward to that too. I look forward to, I want to just say something to everybody that's out there. Thank you so much for following along with this. It's been an honor to be part of it, and I can't wait to see what you build. I can't wait to see what we're putting out there. So thank you all.
More of that soon.
Thank you. See you. Okay, I think now we can get our next question.
We can, if I can find it. Well, we did cover this. What does -- flavor mean in the Flutter CLI? I think that was in your commands you showed on the screen, Craig. It's exactly that, specifying a flavor. It basically allows you to change the way your app builds depending on a target name, which is what the flavor was. We call flavor. So a style, if you will, build.
Yeah, I mean, maybe what a flavor is in general.
Exactly, yeah. Because there are some beginners out there.
How
do you describe a flavor? What's
chocolate, strawberry?
Yeah, I know, right? Like there's different flavors.
Flavors. I mean, in a way, I guess develop and release are flavors, aren't they? Kind of.
Yeah, that's how I use it.
So the problem here, let me give you an example, right? Why it's not called environment, right? Because if you've got sorry, Sarah, I think we're getting some sound from your background. If you can.
I'm so sorry. I'll mute. There's a kitchen here.
Let's say you've got two versions of the app. You've got a paid version, you've got a free version. So those are two flavors, right? Because you don't want all your paid features going into your free version because someone might modify or hack it or who knows what and get to your paid features, right? So you have two versions. Okay. Now you've got three environments. So that means you've now got a free dev version, a paid dev version. You've got a test dev, a free test version. So you got a multiplication of those two things, right? And it gets really, really complicated very quickly, right? So this is why flavor is used as the term separate to environment or such. But for most apps, you want two environments at least, one for dev, one for release. And this way, you're never modifying, whilst you're developing, you're never modifying those release things that in production that people are actually using your app with. So you keep the two environments separate.
Now that everyone is thoroughly confused. No, I'm kidding. Related.
Someone mentioned this one. Esra, do you want to read through these now?
Okay. So Florian asks, flavors are not supported on web, and there are no plans. So what would be your recommended way of having different Firebase projects?
That's actually quite a good question.
Good thought.
So, I mean, I did, as I said, I had different Firebase projects, and I've done that, and that works. You do, however, have a problem, that is how you initialize. I did actually mention this earlier, and I'll see if I can find the way I solved this directly was when you run your command, you can actually run it with like a Dart define. And there's a way of actually getting access to that. That allows you to see what you're started up as, if you started as a dev version of it. And then you can, in your code now, at least in your code in Dart, you can now choose to load those configuration parameters different for each different version. So then you'll be connected to the dev Firestore rather than the production Firestore. That's those, as we spoke about earlier, the sender ID and various things for initializing your Firebase project. There is also, if you're pushing it to different Firebase hostings, there is actually a little, so when you include your, bring this up on stream, hopefully. Damn. I mean, there we go. I'm just going to bring this up as a banner. Just you can do this. There you go. If you put that in your index.html, it will tell, and you've got your Firebase configured for your Firebase hosting, it will tell it to initialize with the right parameters. So that also works as well.
Maybe you can also put it as a comment so that, I don't know whether they took it to screenshot or something.
Get it in there.
Great.
Right, yeah. There you go. See what else we've got.
Okay. So, okay. He or she's back again. I see this name a lot. So what does the Flutter favorite, is it favorite? I think it's still the favorite that we're talking. Tag mean for a widget. Best implementation, best support, best performance, easiest to use. Oh my God. Lots of things.
Well,
please, Scott.
There is a strange rumor that there is a secret society somewhere out there in the world that makes these decisions. No, but basically, it's kind of an all of the above. And what ends up happening is a whole lot of people who know Flutter very, very well look at these packages and basically decide if they are A, popular, B, well written, and C, the kind of thing you would want to really recommend. And then they vote, right?
So there's an ecosystem committee, and the people are actually on the link that I posted. I'm one of them, so I can tell you what happened. Basically, there's a whole process that we go through to ensure that, like, a package is well documented, it meets certain criteria, it's well written. There's a whole slew of things. If you go to that page that's linked, you can actually, if you have a package that you found that you want to be submitted for recommendation to others, submit one, and it will go on the list and it will get reviewed. We try our best, but we don't guarantee everyone gets through, and there's only so many we can do. And again, this is all community effort. But the basically, it's a tag of excellence, right? It's the idea of saying that we, the community and the Flutter team, put their trust in this package and the author, and then maintain this package. If someone stops maintaining one of their Flutter favorite packages, the tag gets removed. They can't, if they're not maintaining that package, it's not now a star package, that's it, it gets removed because it doesn't no longer meet the criteria that makes that a Flutter favorite. Is that simple? And
also keep in mind, there may be Flutter favorites you've never heard of, and some very popular things don't make the list. It is a mark of excellence, of good coding practices, of things that, people will stake their reputations on and say, I recommend this. So just because something's very popular does not mean it's going to make the list. So
yeah, and there's a whole, as I said, there's a whole process. So it's not as simple as, you know, this is a favorite, right? Even the packages that are run by the Flutter team have to go through the process, right? There's no favoritism here. There's nothing like that. This is complicated. I'm trying to find. There's actually a link, and I'm not going to be able to find it right now. No, oh, there we go. Found it. I'll put it up on stream and in the comments here. There's if you on public dev and you want to see the full list, you can go to publicdev/flutter/favorites, and that's the full list of all the Flutter favorites. Currently 64 packages. All power of 2. It's special.
We have to add the next batch of also
64. Yeah, it has to be 8 or 16 or 32, right? Right. Yeah, so there you go. That's Flutter favorites, I guess. I'm sure we have more questions coming in. If you have any questions, please get them in the chat. Don't forget to add a Q in front of your question so we know it's a question.
We have extra time today. There's not another video, so please help.
Yeah, we're here to answer all your questions. It doesn't have to be about deployment, and any Flutter question, and we'll all attempt to provide some stuff. One for Stef.
Stef was checking out an article on the Vendorlic website, 3 months old. Noticed some errors. Do they update or fix errors in the articles too?
When I mentioned the forums earlier, so when you're on the article, if you go down to the bottom and there's a place for comments and you click on it, it will take you to the forum location for that article, and you can pose your question or say, hey, I found this error, and it will get looked at depending on how complicated it is. It depends on how quickly it can be updated. We do go back and update articles. And I have seen some authors who are able to go in if it was a quick fix and make a real quick fix. So it just depends on the issue at hand. But yes, just go to the bottom of the article and click on the comments. I have one more thing. Sorry. Kind of sort of related this. There's also, you can bookmark it so you can get back to it easily, so you don't have to go hunting as well.
I didn't realize that we haven't told people where they can actually get Craig's code from.
Right.
It's right here. So the link is in the comments, and it's github.com/Fullmers, which is Fullmers with an S for Sarah Fuller, and it's Flutter Apprentice Book Club. I thought we might take a quick look. I did post that link, by the way, when your video was going earlier, Craig, to the YouTube video that you said about setting up Firebase. But I thought, why don't we take a look at your project and see it in its final glory? How's that sound for everyone?
It's pretty funny. It's really especially on the login page. So you've already created an account and logged in.
Yeah, I thought I'd skip that bit.
This is a like world-class reminder that adaptive layouts are really important, because you can just see how silly all of these
definitely
mobile patterns,
mobile feel, right, with the things I hit the bottom.
Yeah, and it just feels so silly on web. So adaptive layouts are very important.
I think I was going to say, like, I did obviously notice that we got the black on the paint can. Probably, we could do a nice design to take a look at this kind of stuff and go, there's better ways of doing these things.
There's room for improvement, but
there wasn't a criticism. I'm we're doing this on a few hours each week.
Sample, and somebody can go out and make something better.
It's one of the things.
Wait, isn't this an MVP? Emphasis on M.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, not maximum viable product.
I mean, there's definitely something to be said about this process, and that is, like, we always talk about doing these examples, and it's really hard to show like a final product, because when you're making a final product, that's a lot of time and investment, and that's normally kept private. There's not many. There are some. In fact, Invoice Ninja is a good example of that, of open source full Flutter apps, right? But it's really hard to put something together that's production ready and say, look, here you go. You know, this is, you know, go see this. So you have to take whatever examples that are given, not just from us, but from the entire community, as with a pinch of salt. You don't have to do them exactly as they're written, right? That's not the way it's supposed. It's like, here's some samples, here's some things that you can gain knowledge from.
Right. Something I noticed just recently, when she was off camera for a moment, I believe a raven flew up to Sarah's window. And Sarah, was that a little message I saw tied to the leg of that raven?
It was, Scott. How perceptive. So since we're talking about deploying our apps, especially in the context of this whole series we've done, obviously the book was geared towards mobile. So all the screens we did were formatted for mobile, and it looks not great on web, but I'm sure we can improve it. And if you've been following along and doing your own little project in parallel with us, adding features as we go through the different concepts, then maybe you have an app that you are ready to deploy. In which case, please tell us about it. You can tweet about it, and there's
hashtag Flutter Apprentice, maybe?
Hashtag Flutter Apprentice. There it is.
Yeah.
And show it off. You know, put it in Play Store, App Store, Firebase hosted on web. You do what you want and tell us about it. And yeah, well, I personally, I'll tweet it out. I'll get excited about it. I don't know about the official sites and stuff, but we in the community will get really excited about it. And because I think that there are quite a number of people that have been following along the whole series and maybe have something pretty cool they want to share. So I would be excited to see that. And even if you don't have an app that you are ready to deploy right now, you've still learned a lot. And I want to tell you, it's not like official yet, but in January, there will almost certainly be an exciting challenge that you can do to apply all of the skills that you have been working on for the last 3 months. So
this is a challenge with Flutter?
It is. It might even be called a Flutter challenge. Not to be confused with a different project called Flutter Challenge, which I was part of and has fizzled away as no one has time. But this is a different Flutter challenge arranged by Google, and they will be giving you details in January, and you can do some cool stuff, win some prizes. It's going to be great. And a lot of what you learned through the series will be relevant. So I hope that you'll join us, and stay tuned for more information. The details are still being hammered out, but it's happening. So
either way, it will be announced here. You'll find it on this
well,
channel. So subscribe.
Yeah, like, subscribe, comment. Isn't that what
I got the plugs
in?
Smash that bell icon.
We just need one of those like fancy animations that pops up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah, for sharing it
definitely.
with us. Really.
That's all I wanted to say. So tweet about something you deploy, or if you don't deploy, then join us in January for the Flutter challenge. And yeah, I've been so proud to be part of this. I've just loved working with all of you hosts and interacting with the audience. And I have to go because I'm visiting my dad in the hospital right now, so I got to go and hang out with him. So
thank you for everything.
Why are you here?
Sarah.
Yeah, right. Why are you here? Go.
Right now, but
we're about to kick Sarah off screen, so she'll go see her father.
Yeah. So, bye, guys. Have a good.
Happy holidays. Oops, she's gone.
Oops.
Already.
Okay. I guess we'll a few more questions before we wrap up.
Yes. So here, the next
good
question.
Ones too.
Can I develop a new module in Flutter and deploy it as dependency libraries for native existing iOS and Android apps, such as CocoaPods and Gradle plugins?
can I develop a new module in Flutter and deploy it as a dependency library for native existing? I mean, yeah. So there's a thing called add to app, which is essentially that. So you could create a plugin which has a Gradle module that contains add to app stuff. So then that way you could use Flutter in your SDKs and modules and stuff. I mean, it's not normally a done thing, mainly because you're incorporating another framework, and that puts a heavy load on the app, and they might not be asking for that. So, but there's no reason why you can't do it, as far as I'm aware. Normally, you would want to use this add to app and create a module in your app. Am I right in understanding this?
I think you're. I wasn't parsing the question until you did, but now it makes sense. And as a dependency that others would install, I agree that extra overhead of shipping all of Flutter, the Dart runtime, and Skia to an app that doesn't otherwise need it might be a tough sell.
Yeah. But
just like Simon said, there's no explicit wall blocking you. Yeah.
I think I'm just thinking, if you had let's say you had 5 like plugins or five sort of libraries that all did this, I'm not sure if it do like the Flutter handling in all of them, right? There's probably it's worth experimenting. There's definitely no reason why you couldn't, but like you would definitely want to run like distribute 5 versions of Flutter, for example, because each library might be using a slightly different version, for example, or something like that. So you wouldn't want to like ship lots of stuff. So yeah, normally you'd keep that separate. You could tell people like in the installation instructions to use your sort of native package, that they should add a module for Flutter and follow these instructions to do so. And then you're adding a separate dependency, and they understand that there's a separate dependency on Flutter.
I think that makes sense.
Let's see. Do we have more questions?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So, Cosmin asks, if I don't have an Apple machine, I think maybe. Okay. If I don't have an Apple machine, is there any chance to run an iOS simulator on my Windows machine? I do have an iPhone.
Okay. No. Here we go. I've got this one. Now look. Cosmin, in fact, we've got a couple of questions from you here. I think I want to maybe do the more important question first. Let's see.
Where can I get a Flutter t-shirt like yours?
Yep. Actually, this shirt is really, really old. I think this is a 2017 or 2018 shirt. I don't even know that they have any anymore. But one thing I know a lot of people are doing, because it's difficult to get shirts, you can get the artwork, the Flutter and the Flutter F. It is publicly available, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with you going to a local printer and printing your own. So, and
that's a big grin right there, Scott.
Oh yay! Now going back to your other question here thank you. Can you compile Apple products? Can you compile for Apple products on a Windows machine? Not legally.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't want to get into that. No.
That's the right answer. Yeah.
We don't want to get into that. There's cloud services that
do not use a Hackintosh. It is completely illegal.
Yep.
Okay. It is a violation of Apple's terms of service. But really, you need to have Xcode in order to compile for Mac or iOS.
Which only runs on Apple OS.
No, only runs on an Apple.
So one thing I'd like to ask here, because I don't know, could they plug their iPhone into their Windows machine and then launch to their device? No, as well, Steph, you know. No. I don't have a Windows laptop, so I've never been able to test this.
Now,
if you have virtual machines, there are ways to put USB device. It's called VTD, basically virtual devices. So you can actually pipe that virtual device straight into a VM. But that's if you had a virtual iOS machine, which is against terms of service. But
wait. Now here's the question though. There are hacking clouds.
Right? you couldn't get, but what I'm trying to say is you can't get your local iPhone to connect over USB over the internet to a cloud-based Mac. That no one's done that yet.
Okay, now an interesting thing though, I know that we can run on virtual devices that are Apple devices via the cloud, and we can compile on the other end because CodeMagic does this. Okay, for their CI/CD, so does AppCircle.
Yeah.
Okay, and
But it's not the same as running and testing it.
It's not. Well, I mean, if you write your tests,
Yeah, what I'm trying to say, you
push
can
it with your
compile, you
tests,
can compile
but-
remotely, but you can't develop. Right? There's a difference.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right, hot reload would take forever. I mean, every time you reload, it would have to spin up a new VM and reload Flutter, and
It could get
not
expensive.
practical. Yeah.
there is actually something to mention, and I don't know what the cost is. Genymotion offer cloud-based VMs,
Really?
literally for develop. You could use them for development, but I don't know what they're all hosted on AWS, I think. And I don't know what the
At
cost
some
is.
point, somebody is going to put forth a service. I'm sure somebody's going to do it. I'm surprised they haven't already. If I don't know about it, maybe they did. But a Mac in cloud that has your IDE, has Flutter, all of that, so that basically you spin up a VM and you do your development as if your own machine's a dummy terminal.
Yeah, well, that's what I've done in the past. So you can like Craig was just saying, you can spin up like a cloud. So Mac Stadium, a bunch of other. I'm just naming that because that's the one that came to head. But there's a bunch of services that offer Mac in the cloud, and when you do that, you're VNCing. So you actually get a virtual desktop of your virtual display of that remote device, and you can actually bring up a simulator. So you can still develop iOS, but you're developing it through VNC, and so there's a lag factor there. So it's not the same as developing on a local machine, definitely not. But if it's the only way you're going to do it until your app earns you potentially enough funds to purchase a laptop or a Mac laptop or something.
Have you seen the price on those things?
I was going to say the best option I'd recommend people is a Mac Mini. Mac Mini is perfect compilation. They're used by all these companies, CodeMagic and everything else, to compile your code. That's what they use. So
and you
Also
can get
look
them
for,
used.
Oh, sorry. You can also look for refurbished. And
That's what I
things
was
like
going to
that.
say.
And like if you can get a refurbished Mac Mini, that's even better.
You want a 2015 version, ideally. You need above 2012. 2012 is no longer supported. The late 2012
right,
models.
2014 or 18.
2014 or above, basically. But there's a sweet spot in some of them, I think 2015 or 2018, where they still have removable memory. So with the ones with removable memory, you can upgrade. So if the second hand only come with 4 gigabytes, you can go get like an 16 gig DIMM and put that in the bottom of the Mac Mini. So go research online. I'm not going to tell you which model, but yeah.
And when I got mine, I spent about $375 US to get a refurbished Mac Mini 2018. And the one thing I didn't realize is you can't replace the hard drive in this, but you can replace the memory. So be sure you know what you're getting. And if you can't replace the hard drive, they're external SSDs. Or,
Yeah,
I mean, these things do have USB-C.
If it's one of the later models like 2018, it probably is like on internal memory anyway that runs the hard drive, so it's fast enough, like an SSD. But if you've got a non-SSD second-hand one, you definitely want to upgrade it to an SSD one. Make sure you can upgrade it because it'll be
if
too
you
slow
can.
otherwise for development.
I got this on Black Friday. It's 4 terabytes. It blew my mind.
What?
Well, have you seen those? Have you? I mean,
it's big.
It's USB-C. It's awesome, and it's gigabit.
Yeah, this is what I was going to say. The problem is it's not about the size of the storage anymore, because you can get like an micro SD card that's a terabyte, right?
Yeah.
The problem is it's really slow. Like they have like a 4-bit interface. Like they're terribly slow, right? So yeah, you need like
when I did my
connection
time
to get
machine
speed
to
out.
this, I couldn't believe the first time machine how quickly it went. It blew me away.
USB-C, right?
Yeah, USB-C, and it itself. Oh, here, the box.
Can you drop a link to that storage?
Yeah, I love
Not
it.
really.
It's my Christmas present.
I love it.
Thank you, Simon.
Now, I will tell you
that
so I got it at Costco, and it was on their Black Friday, but normally, you're going to pay. So I bought 2, and I was pushing 1,000.
And she's pawning the second one.
No. That's why it's not opening.
She's gonna sell you the second one for a lot more.
I got the 4 terabyte because that was the biggest that they had, and I went ahead and I'm like, okay, I'm getting that because the computer that I ordered, my M1 is a 4 terabyte. Yes, I know I'm gonna end up running out of space, but I love how fast this is. All my others that I have that are not SSD.
Oh yeah.
This was awesome. So yes, I can share the link, but it's just the SanDisk portable, extreme portable SSD.
But yeah,
they have a variety of sizes. They have 1, 2, and 4. They could have bigger ones, but I was super happy.
Yeah.
Okay, now that we have a logical pausing point, now that I have also answered the most important question of the show,
the t-shirt.
The t-shirt, yes. I am going to step out because I have this thing called a day job. And people are expecting certain things of me.
Yep, I'm going to have to go pretty soon too. So if there are any questions for Stef, get them in really fast because I'm going to have to go too.
And also, being that today is the 15th and next week could be the 22nd, we may not be doing much with the show for the next couple of weeks because of the holidays. We shall see. Maybe some people are lonely and have no life and want to come out here. But...
Well, when you put it that way,
talk about yourself.
Oh my god. Okay.
Right.
If there are any questions, my Twitter handle is listed. Oh, did I freeze?
Yeah, you're frozen.
Yeah, you're frozen.
We lost you, Scott. Sorry about that.
Now you've thawed.
Oh yeah, you're thawed now, Steph. That's right. You've gone through your winter melt.
Okay.
I can't even pronounce this.
What's the difference between
8?
Huh? Okay.
I10N and I18N. Do you want to explain this?
Yeah. Well, I think so first of all, the snarky side of me says the difference is 8. But the actual answer. So I think the I10N, I think what you mean is L10N for localization. And the 10 stands for the number of letters between the L and the N in the very long, cumbersome word. And then I18N is internationalization. And there's apparently 18 letters there. I've not counted personally to verify. But it's just those 2 words.
Basically, they're shortened for those 2 words. One means localization, one means internationalization. The question is, are you asking what's the difference between those 2 phrases or what the meaning of the 2 words? Because localization is more about language and internationalization is more about all the rest of it, right? So I'll give you an example. You might have, sorry, I'm getting feedback here from someone.
Yeah.
I don't hear anything.
I think it's, yeah.
No, it's gone now.
No, it's done. Oh, good.
Yeah, so the difference is being internationalization is, let's say you've got products with different prices, right? Those prices are determined by maybe the person's location or country, and that's internationalization. But the language they're reading it in is localization. So you can imagine that you've got, you could still be in, let's say, the UK and seeing things in pounds, but you speak French. Right, so that's why they're 2 different things. I can be reading my app in French, but see pounds because I'm in the UK. That's vice versa. I could still be speaking French, and I can be in Canada, and I'd see Canadian dollars, or I can be in US and see American dollars. Right. So there's a difference between the 2. That'd be the best explanation I could give.
That's insightful. I actually did not know. As soon as I said one's internationalization, one's localization, then I was like, and what would the difference between those 2 be?
I probably picked up a little bit of a difference there because currency is normally considered part of localization. Sometimes, it depends. But internationalization is more about the other parts that are not to do with language, because again, changing language doesn't mean you've changed. Again, you could be a French speaker in a English speaking nation, for example, as my example is, and you have 2 different scenarios there. So it's very much like that kind of environment versus flavor kind of deal.
So which one would be left to right versus is right to left? Is that internationalization?
Good
Or
question.
localization? I don't
I
know.
consider that part of localization, to be fair, but
It's
you're
language.
because it's part of the language, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had to build an app once. I had 32 different languages.
That's a lot.
And yeah, and one of them was like Urdu, which I've never even heard of before. I had to do this.
Well, hey, you made an app that was accessible to a lot of people. That's
did.
awesome.
But you know,
That's
I
great.
really it made an impression on me because I just don't like right to left, left to right stuff. Because when you start getting
Oh my god.
Arabic with English words in the middle of a sentence, or vice versa, English
Yeah.
with Arabic word in the middle,
Oh,
things go crazy.
But as soon as you see that, it really kind of highlights the importance of paying attention to directionality, because as soon as us Western folks have to suffer through 1 minute of looking at right to left, our brains melt. So we can't make anyone from the Middle East suffer through left to right all the time. Like they wouldn't want it any more than we want it. So it's all very important.
There's it's one of the reasons why the phrasing for, I don't know if anyone knows this, but the alignment phrasing is start and end.
Yep.
Not left and right. So we used to use left and right, but then of course left and right flip for right to left languages, which doesn't make any sense anymore. So that's why we have start and end. Start is where it starts, ends where it ends, and those two ideas will flip on right to left. So it starts on the right, ends on the left instead. So that makes sense. It's supposed to make sense at least.
The idea was that it would make sense.
The idea was that it would make sense. We planned it very well.
okay. Here are the next question. Is Flutter Web deployable in other clouds environment apart from Firebase hosting?
Yeah, sure is. So I was talking about how there's 1,000 ways to do it, and there probably are literally 1,000 ways to do it. Firebase hosting makes it very easy. You only technically need a static site hosting. So S3 also has static site hosting kind of wrapped around it.
Cool cloud buckets.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. Pages.
Right. Yeah. Any of those will do.
I was gonna say, if you look up static site generators, right? Any articles you read about static site generation, they all talk about deploying you up to any one of these website hosting things, right? GitHub Pages, Firebase hosting, S3, AWS, whatever it is. If you just basically Flutter is generating that web directory, that build web directory that's talking about in the video, that is your deployment. That is all your files. You could just take that, the contents of that directory, and put it anywhere on any hosting, and it should just work.
Yep, you could put it on a DigitalOcean droplet. Anything.
Yeah. So I mean, one of the interesting things that I've done in the past, actually, I'll mention this now, was take a deployment of Flutter Web and deploy the Dart server code in one, so that the route, the shelf in shelf is like a web server built in Dart. The shelf router would direct the route traffic to the public folder, which had all the files in. So it would serve off all of the normal website, but then it'll be like /API, and then that would actually run Dart web server code, basically. So there's all sorts of fun things you can do. Sorry, right. I think we've got a couple more questions coming in.
Okay. So Nadun asks, in native iOS and Android apps, we have to add different sizes of image assets. He's mentioning about the multi-resolution and how to add different sizes of images in Flutter projects. And actually, for this, I'm always using SVGs instead of going for PNGs in different resolutions.
So I was going to say, SVG, right? For anything that is simple, use an SVG. Now that it's kind of not that bad anymore, but you can get away with quite, like on the early devices, you wouldn't want. So just to explain the difference, just quickly. SVG is a scalable vector graphic, is what it stands for. It means it's drawn on the CPU at runtime, whereas a bitmap-based one, that's PNG, JPEG, and all that, they're rendered previously, and there's now a matrix of pixels that have been drawn on the screen. Two approaches. One means that it's scaled and perfectly rendered for the device it's on, but that's because it's rendering at the time, which means it uses CPU. So you have too many SVGs, that's going to eat up your frame time. On the other hand, if you have too many images, that takes up a lot of bandwidth for your graphics. So it's about finding the right mix, but for instance, you wouldn't put a photo as an SVG, right? That's an image, but a simplified graphics, so those cartoony kind of the icons and things like that, that's perfect SVG territory. Use them for that. There is actually a guide. I'm going to see if I can put this in the chat. From that's a comment in the live stream. That's the official documentation for assets and images, and it does talk about how you supply. If I can find it in there, it's under declaring resolution-aware image assets. Basically, you make in your assets, you make another folder with like 2.0x, 3.0x, 4.0x, whatever it is, and you can put your same file name that you would have in your directory that you've put in your assets, and it will know that it will from the right scale screen, it'll switch and choose the right one for you. But you can put them in any folder structure you want, so you can have multiple subdirectories and all sorts.
Yeah. Also, even there's multiple online generators for it. You can directly drop your image in there. Just generates for you. You can just download it as a zip file and put it in your assets. Both for, I think, app icon and regular assets.
It's worth saying that you're only as good as you can't scale up, right? So if you've got like what we call like HDPI or 2x, right, and you've got 3x display, the problem is you can supply just that image, and it will appear the same size. It's scaled down on that extra large screen then. So the icon appears the same, smaller than its original physical size. If you just scale that up with one of these generators, then you're going to get a fuzzy image because it's just made it bigger.
Probably.
It's the same as if you edited your image and you went, I'm going to make it 3 times larger. Now 1 pixel is 3 pixels, right? And you'll just get a larger blurry picture, which you don't want. So you need to make sure your source image, you're working from your highest resolution source image and getting your smaller versions, and how you scale that down in whatever image Photoshop, whatever image software you use. You can choose like bicubic or other sort of mechanisms of noise reduction. So the smaller it gets, the clearer it still maintains its finer detail. But like most things, that's a designer's job normally, and they'll supply you with the different variations, or there's like Figma software that does it for you as well.
Okay. This also happened in the show. It's like we said, designer's job to do.
I mean, the thing is, it's why we had different roles in building software, right? It's very difficult for one person to. You can do everything, but then you're wearing different hats. There's a lot more to it, and your timeline it gets extended because you're now essentially doing things in serial, right? You're doing design, then design, then development, and rather than doing design and development in parallel. So, all that multitasking, that's what we need. More CPU power.
So the next question comes from what do you think on displaying DRM encryption of video in Flutter app? Displaying DRM encryption.
Is it a good idea or not? I mean, sure, go for it. I know there's some libraries out there that support it. I mean, there's no reason why. I can't think of a reason why it wouldn't work. It's quite complicated because the widgets, the widgets are hosted on a separate screen on Android, and it's the screen that takes the decrypted video and decrypts it normally. So it's I don't know if it would actually work. I've not done it myself. I know that it should work on web because web has a different pipeline, but it's really down to the native platform. But try it. I mean, if you can find one of these a partnering SDK that supports DRM that you want to use, there's no reason you can follow the plugin and packages guidelines on flutter.dev and try just whipping up like a simple package around it and just do what we call spike or something where it's like just throw it together. Does it work? And if it works, great. Then you can go full ahead and do a proper package around it. I don't know of any particular package to offer DRM. No. Right. Any other comments on that? So I just talked for hours.
No, I don't. I've actually never done anything with DRM, so I have nothing to add.
Me neither. Yeah. The next question. How can I get Flutter app deployment to Play Store via CodeMagic? Kind of lost in procedures as required keys, etc.
Well, the CodeMagic do have a great set of help pages and information. Follow them, and there's some videos in them that take you through step by step. But yeah, this is the problem. Like we were saying, that one of the reasons why we chose to do web for this deployment is because it's something you can easily explain. The problem with the store Play stores are their requirements and their procedures change all the time, and you just got to keep on top of it. And for a person new, it's just a minefield, and it is one of those things where you've got to go at it, read articles, try your best. And once you've sort of narrowed down the steps that you went through, you now know how to sort of repeat them. The Play Store has made improvements. So I remember the original Play Store had green tick boxes on the tabs, and once you knew you had all green tick boxes, you're ready for deployment because it had all the information it needed. There's actually in the new Play Store console, it's now got a whole section called Getting Ready or something, and it actually gives you a whole screen of walking you through all the steps you need to do to deploy. I would suggest you deploy normally, and once you've got your app deployed on the Play Store, then go to CodeMagic and set up the link to the Play Store. And once you set up the link to the Play Store, got the keys and all this kind of stuff, then you can actually automate the deployment. But until you've got one app deployed, it's really difficult to get it set up beforehand. So yeah, manually first and then do it. But yeah, the key you're talking about is you have to go into like your account on the Play Store, not your app, and under users and permissions, you have to there's a separate section for exporting a key, and this is allows API access to the Play Store for CodeMagic. Yeah, it's complicated.
Yeah.
Sorry. Follow the guides.
It's totally okay.
Yeah. I lamented the difficulty for a reason. You are not alone.
Also, I want to remind that please do not forget to put the Q in front of your questions, because now I can see some questions which don't have Q in front of them.
I mean, we try our best, but we can't be sure that we're going to see your message if you don't have a Q in front of it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what else we have.
Not a question, but a thank you for your help getting started. I have been coding along, now feel comfortable with layouts thanks to the coding labs. Going back through the book feels slightly better. Yeah, huge thanks to Create for it. You know, you are the star of the show. Huge content every week. Come on, you recorded 10 weeks of video. Come on.
Also, the decoding Flutter stuff is really good, by the way. Really good.
Yeah.
It's hard to get that complex knowledge down into like small bite-sized chunks. I'm assuming there's a lot that goes into the behind the scenes on decoding Flutter.
Yeah, it's all we're having a lot of fun trying to help everybody write good Flutter apps. You're very welcome, Jay Connors.
Cool. I just saw this one. It wasn't on my list, but I just saw it here. I haven't read it. Let's see.
Yeah, let's see. What is the best practice to render images in Flutter app? Dealing with different sizes, caching. I worry setting sizes in the code, especially from the adaptive aspects.
If you don't set width and height, it will pass them over. It always nice is to set them because it will cache them, but it has to process and resize the image down. But it uses less memory at runtime. The thing I suggest you look at is cache network image. It's a package, and it does all the disk caching and in memory and deals with the memory cache and all for you. So you just use their image provider, it just magically works. But yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about width and height of images unless you're dealing with like photos and like larger images. Most of your images you use should be like sub 100 kilobytes most of the time anyway, or around that sort of sub 200 kilobytes.
I think an aspect that they're getting at here is how image sizes can affect your layout as aspect ratios change. I think. So right on mobile, you've got a portrait aspect ratio of your device.
Right.
And so you size your image in a certain way. Suddenly on desktop, you've got a landscape aspect and things look very silly. The APOD app is an excellent demo of how to have something look very silly. And so for that, I would advise like make checks against the media query to see what the aspect ratio is and just set up a couple branches for yourself of how to lay things out and have them look nice.
there's also just mention that you can also you've got fit. So on an image widget, there's fit, a fit parameter, and that fit parameter that you set like to fill, to cover, which means it will crop off anything that goes outside the aspect ratio. There's a few other fitting parameters that can help make your image look right in the situation it is, depending on the screen size as well. So there's also aspect ratio widget, which lets you force an aspect ratio on a piece of content, which can also then help. So you might want to force the size and then center it or align it in some fashion. That can also help.
Great question.
Cool. Is Google authentication something that replaces authentication 0? Does Google authentication charge for use?
Do they mean OAuth? Or is there a thing that's auth?
There's auth. It's another.
Auth.
I think it's an auth, and I think it's another supplier of auth 0. I think it's another supplier. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So auth is free in Firebase. That does not cost anything.
Yeah.
So that's that detail. And I'm sure that it's the same as auth. I mean, it's just if it's like a gateway into many different social auths, then they would be the same. If Simon is seeing that auth is something different, then the answer could change.
Yeah. Auth. I mean, I think it is. I played around with Auth a long time ago. It's just an authentication library, and they all support the same sort of principles.
And there's a couple different layers involved here, right? Because we kind of used 2 different Google-based auth technologies in the APOD app. One was Google Sign-In, which is what you actually see in the UI and what we click. But how did the APOD app successfully talk to Google Sign-In? Well, that was through the middle person of, you used to call that middle man, but everyone can be in the middle, so it's a middle person now. The middle person of Firebase Auth, which is just the code bridge to get your app talking to Google Auth or Apple Auth or Facebook or GitHub or Pinterest. So that's kind of that's how those 2 things fit together in the APOD app that we just assembled.
I think I mentioned here that we talk about auth 0, that is a provider. OAuth or OAuth 2 is the mechanism that authentication happens, like the protocol, if you will. And that's been documented as a standardized protocol. There's we call RFCs, official internet documents for the Internet Engineering Task Force. And Google use that, so does OAuth 0, so does Facebook, so does Pinterest. And that's why you can like log in to an app with Facebook or with Google or with Apple or whatever, because they all support the standardized mechanism for doing so. It is, however, not simple, and that's one of the reasons why these packages exist, because it means that it takes away that complexity. So you just say log in, and then that's it. They magically log in. You enable Facebook, you enable Twitter login, you enable, and it just handles all the complexity for you. And that's why we recommend something like Google Auth or Auth 0 or another provider of authentication, so that you don't have to go through a lot of trouble like trying to deal with login. You just want to someone just wants to press a button and get into your app. They don't want to have to like set up an account, get an email, verify that email, and do all this kind of rigmarole, right? It's just
right. And you as the developer also didn't get into this because you cared about login flows. Like you care about what your user does after they log in. So it helps everyone.
Not just to mention that it's fraught with security problems. So the last thing you want to do is to have a bug in the way that you've done your authentication, and then it leaks everyone's passwords, or some hacker gets in and takes everything and publishes it. And that happens, then for a small business, it might be the end of your business. So, yeah.
Yeah. Also cause lots of, drop on when they are just signing up. There are lots of drop-offs of the users. Just you need to remove the friction. Just have them directly sign up with Google or Facebook, whatever. We have lots of questions, by the way.
I'm gonna see. We can go pick through a couple more.
Yeah. Which applications made using Flutter published on the Play Store?
Do you recommend to look into, as in like to understand? So there's gallery. There's also a showcase. If you go to flutter.dev and then showcase, I think it's still called showcase.
Probably.
There's you're gonna see if we can find the link. I just
sure is it.
I'll stick it in the chat. There you go. There's a bunch of apps in there that are using it that you can go like look at. It's kind of funny. Like as a Flutter developer, I've seen some apps. And I go, oh yeah, that's made in Flutter. I can tell, right? Like there's like little nuances, but for the most part, yeah, you're not gonna know that app's built with Flutter or not. Like.
Yeah, only the keenest eyes will be able to tell.
I can't remember what it was now, but I noticed I was like, that's they didn't do this right in Flutter or whatever. You can just like there's something. I think it was like to do with the way touch worked or something. I don't know. But no, for the most part, there's a difference. I tell you what, I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for that Flutter release that has the Android 12 stretch. Have you used Android 12, Craig? The you know when you like scroll and it stretches. So if you go to like Twitter and like scroll like the stream, when you get to the edge, instead of having overscroll now, it stretches the content.
Yeah.
And that's not in the Flutter app at the moment. It doesn't support it.
It's also not on my phone. So
well, just choose any. Oh, we got Android 12. You mean?
I think I'm in the latest Android. Yeah, I'm not seeing what you're talking about though.
It's on there. Any scrolling content, you can go to any scrolling content. The default behavior of overscroll now is to stretch, like it stretches the content panel rather than bouncing it or whatever.
Yeah. I'm still in the old world.
They I say the big G, they went updating my old Pixel. I've got Pixel 6 now, which hasn't. But the old Pixel didn't get the update. I think they're just waiting for it to, for some reason, I don't know.
Make sure I'm actually on the newest one.
Right. What else do we have?
Next question. Can we use ABS Mac instances to do that? I think they are. Yeah. I
think this is what I'm talking about when we spoke earlier about the Mac stuff, right? Like, yeah, you can VNC, you can set up VNC, you can log in, and you can develop on one of those, but you're paying for the runtime, right? So I'm assuming, I mean, it depends on how you set up the node, the AWS node, but if you've got an always on node for the entire, you're getting charged every month for having that, right? So at some point you're like, well, I've just paid out for a Mac, right?
Yeah.
So you might be worth looking to if you can get a Mac on finance even at that point, because if you're paying like £50 a month for an AWS Mac instance and or more, I don't know how much they are, and you'll be paying that out on getting a Mac Mini, well then you're better off getting a Mac Mini and having the asset yourself, and you don't have to paying a third-party company. That's what I'd say.
Okay, coming. I think I read this one, but wasn't sure about how to solve. Call to action button at the bottom of the screen with a scrollable area above it. Okay. Call to action button doesn't scroll with the rest of the content. It should be. How to stop the keyboard pushing the CTA button up to the screen.
Yeah. I just recorded a decoding Flutter on this 2 days ago. So it'll be out in January, but you want to know before then. So
So there's plenty of ways of solving this. It all depends on how you want to do it. But the main problem that people have is they wrap their content in a scaffold. And scaffold, built into scaffold, it will resize the body of the content to be above the keyboard for you. And there's actually a parameter on a scaffold. I think it's like it
should resize or something. Yeah.
Should resize with window padding.
Insets. Yeah.
There you go. So in media query, if you do media query of context, for example, you'll see view padding and view insets.
And regular padding. There's 3 of them.
Yeah, I know. Don't even start. And I don't want to answer the question about how these are different, because I would be here for hours. But view insets bottom will be the height of the keyboard when it's open. So what you can actually do is really simple. Is you put your scaffold in a column, and then that's your first element in the column that's above. You can turn off turn off the resize if you want to, or leave it on, and then underneath that put your CTA. And then so what will happen is the top content will resize and the CTA will stay behind the keyboard, right? That's the kind of thing. There's a couple of other ways of doing it, right, with like single child scroll view as well.
Yeah, in general, reacting to the keyboard, I think, is one of the trickier things, because sometimes you want to completely rethink your UI while the keyboard is showing. Maybe you've got a big hero image. When the keyboard comes up, you just scrap the hero image and like show the other stuff, You do kind of have to be.
I was just say having a control bar, like it's kind of common practice, like on iOS, to have like an extra bar above the keyboard with the like go action or undo or some other sort of personal actions.
Yeah, so that's definitely a tricky one. But the media query bottom view insets, not bottom. Yeah, that'll tell you whether or not the keyboard is visible, so you can programmatically tell and then make decisions based on what you see there.
So yeah, I was going to say what I've done before is just simply do a. So if you had imagine you've got a column with your button in the second slot, and in the first slot at the top, you've got expanded, so it fills the rest of the screen. And inside that, you could simply do what's called a builder, and then inside that, return a padding with the padding bottom set to inside media query of view insets bottom. And it will just adjust automatically. The builder would only rebuild that portion of the screen. The button won't be rebuilt.
It's clever.
But yeah, there's lots of ways of tackling this thing. Hopefully that puts you in the right direction. Right. Hey. Let's see what else we got.
Do you guys have any plan to cover isolates in near future? Does the book cover this topic?
I don't believe it does, but there is a Dart Apprentice book, and I would assume that covers. I'm going to assume that covers isolates. Let me just look that up. I need a Stef. Wait, Stef's gone.
Stef,
come back, Stef.
Yeah, one thing that's very nice about isolates, and this became true about a week ago, is so Flutter offers a compute function, which basically runs some stuff in an isolate. That's been true for a long time. But what became true a week ago is that it's now very cheap and efficient to invoke that function, which is exciting.
I literally did a talk on this for the Geekly conference. There's a really good page. I'm going to find the link, because if I don't find the link, it's going to bug the hell out of me. There's a new page on Dart.dev which specifically covers understanding concurrency in Dart, and with some really nice diagrams, and covers the new isolate groups, or lightweight isolates that let you spin up loads and no longer have the overhead that was attached to the previous isolates. So basically, isolates are a good idea now, not a bad idea. Right, so previously you wouldn't want to spin up an isolate for every HTTP request, because you'd add an extra like 500 milliseconds or something to your latency of each request. Now it's like 100 times less or something. It's really well.
10 to 100. I don't know what. Yeah,
it was it was definitely like a huge scale, and I'm like that. It makes sense now to do quite a bit with.
That 10 to 100, I think it was 100 times faster on low-end devices, and about 10 times faster on already high-end devices, because the high-end devices were already doing better. So they sped up less, but low-end devices speed up a ton with the recent update.
This is I need to find this. It's gonna bug that. I found my talks. Right. Okay. Let's find it. We'll move on, and I'll put the link in the chat in a minute and see if we've got any other questions.
Okay. So, can we run Android emulator in M1 Pro at same speed as Intel MacBook Pro? I'm not using M1 Pro. I'm using M1 Air.
It's what we spoke about earlier, though, right?
Yeah, it sounds like this is a no, sadly.
Yeah.
Too many layers of translation.
Yeah.
Can we Dockerize our Flutter web application?
You sure should be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, the magic of the Flutter app is in the JavaScript files that get pulled down. So what you would Dockerize certainly your HTML file, that index.html file, any maybe Nginx or like something to actually serve the file, and that JavaScript file might be in the Docker file, might be in a CDN. But the magic is in the JavaScript file. So, you could certainly Dockerize it to standardize your deployment of it, but it's just those two files, and then the browser stitches them together and actually makes your Flutter app come to life.
I do want to mention that, it's the Dart Apprentice book that has chapter 10, asynchronous programming. So if you get Dart Apprentice or do the standard sort of subscribe to all of Ray Wendelic's content, you'll find that you get access to that as well. If you're having problems subscribing because you're on the free one, you have to email, I forget the email address. It was like customer support at raywendelic.com. I'll see if I can find it for you. And then you can, no, it's in the forum. I know it's in the Ray Wendelic forum, but that will get you subscribed up, and you can get to that content. Since we're talking about it, I found the link, so I'll put it in the chat. And
about isolates.
And I'll share the content right now on stream, because this is actually a very interesting topic to talk about quickly. So we can bring it up. Maybe I should make this bigger. Is that maybe that? Is that big enough for everyone? I hope so.
It looks like
that'll do. Right. So so this is and I put the link in the live chat, but this is the new concurrency and Dart page, and this goes through all the stuff and links to external content, which is really helpful, and explains the difference between futures and sync, async and await, shows you how it's used, and all this lovely good stuff. These are the things that's really interesting. So things like, your Dart app starts. When you wait for something, it goes and does the I/O on a non-Dart VM or operating system thread whilst it carries on. So I think there's actually it walks you through it. And this is how the main isolate works. I think it actually, here's every isolate starts by running some Dart code, such as the main function. This code registers some event listeners and responds. Once the isolate initial function returns, the isolate stays around if it needs to handle other events. After handling these events, the isolate exits. What this actually means, which I think is explained here, we go. Event handling happens on the main isolate after the main function exits.
So, Simon, can I interrupt you?
Go on. Sorry.
So, Craig needs to go.
Oh,
so we need
sorry,
to say
Craig.
thanks to him.
Thanks, Craig.
Thank you.
Yep. It was my pleasure, everyone. Now get back to learning stuff from Simon and Esra.
See you soon.
All right, see y'all.
See you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So
we can continue now.
Sorry, I was just making this interesting remark, because most people see the main function as being everything and all the content, and then it's actually after the main function exits that it actually starts handling the events for those asynchronous events that are continuing on. So I'll try and give an example. So for example, in Flutter, you've got run app spins off asynchronous operations. The main function finishes, and then it carries on running those asynchronous operations. So anyway, so there's a few things going on here. It's worth a read. Background isolates, how to do stuff, and it's the new. It does actually walk you through this, but it's the new isolate spawn and isolate exit. You don't have to. This is purely Dart, so you don't have to use these. And instead, in the Flutter API documentation, it's a public function, so you just use compute. This is I'll bring it up on the screen here. There you go. It's called compute, and it literally is just it's compute and brackets, and then you get these lovely parameters that you can supply. I won't go into them now, but it means there's actually a great article which was written by Andre Bizzotto recently, and to talk you through this. But basically, it automatically starts your isolate up and does everything for you. So you just use the compute function. I think it does talk about it somewhere in here, somewhere. But there's lots of information. So that's in the chat. There you go. I'll now.
I think you put it in the chat already.
Yeah.
And just for your info, you can just put the queue in front of your questions. We don't have many announcements. We will be just answering your questions. So for the ones who want to leave, we don't have any surprise for you. We will just answer the questions. Next question. Is there any full stack Flutter framework like Next.js for React?
I mean, full stack. I mean, that's what Flutter is. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You need anything. You don't. So here's the thing. JavaScript itself is very, very basic, right? Like the what JavaScript does in and of itself, it doesn't even have like array length. Array length is like it's an additional thing you have to do. So that's why NPM has all these packages for all these things, and you have all these packages layer on top, on top, on top. And when Next.js comes in and solves a bunch of things around web-specific use with JS to solve those patterns. But Flutter itself is that framework. Flutter is the Next.js framework sitting on top of Dart's rendering system, on top of the native platform. So you don't have to deal with those. So yeah, there should be no reason to go above and beyond. And there's plenty of other frameworks, and there's other like higher levels than Flutter. People have done plugins and packages that kind of take maybe some of the boilerplate away, but for the most part, Flutter will do what you want.
Yeah. It's already the one we said. Okay. How much can we do to prevent code reverse engineering, especially that we need to put API keys in the code? Firebase offer app check, but what can we do beyond this?
There are several companies that offer like active scanning of memory, but to be honest, your app itself is compiled into machine code, which is highly difficult. Like a standard Android app, there's simple tools out there that you can take your APK file, reverse engineer it, and see. It can be obfuscated, but you can essentially see the code. With a natively compiled, and this is how banks protect a lot of their code and stuff like that. They compile C code into native machine code, and they do all their magic there. And purely because seeing the machine code operations like move memory from this address to this address and add memory 1 to this address, it's not easily reverse engineered. Don't get me wrong, professionals out there, they do this as a day job. They look into how viruses are made and all sorts of other fun things. But to take that and understand it and take your project and find out like how it's doing something, it would be literally impossible for Flutter because there's no UI that's done outside of the binary. However, there's not to say that people can't look at the strings in an app and find your API key. So if you want to obfuscate your API key, you can do some simple mechanisms of just encrypting them. You ship your encryption key with it, but they're encrypted. So it means statically, right? So that means if you just look at the contents of a file, you're not going to see them. It's only at runtime they get decrypted, and that way you have to be analyzing the runtime memory, which is even more harder and another sort of level of difficulty. And that's where these other packages come in. There's literally companies that supply mobile security for apps. I can't think of the company name. Do I have it here? No.
Do you really have it there?
Yeah. So I met them actually at DroidCon London. That was
okay.
one of these companies recently, and they gave me a lovely business card, and I've put it somewhere and I can't find it now. But Test Guard, something like that. Guard. I don't know, mobile guard.
Yeah.
There's probably
ping him in the Twitter. Ping him in the Twitter, and he will find it.
yeah. If comment below if you're this company, sure, go ahead. But the fact of the matter, they do active memory scanning to stop people from then browsing your thing. But to be honest, API keys are public. You have to protect them. Don't get me wrong, but you normally protect. So, for example, Google API keys in the Google Cloud Console. You go into credentials and you're meant to protect those keys against your signature of your application. That way, only apps compiled with your private key, which is in your hands, can use the API key. No one else can, even if they've got the API key string, they can't use it because they're not your package and they're not compiled with your signing key. So there's other mechanisms that you should be doing to protect your keys, but the keys themselves are public. Like they're literally there to access a public resource, right? So in essence, you shouldn't have to protect API keys. There might be other keys and tokens you need to protect, and just purely obfuscating them, like XOR string encoding, would be good enough for most situations.
If a class has only static methods and fields, should it be coded as a Dart class, or is it better to code outside a class and import using as class name? Which one is better and why?
I think they mean why not have it all public without a class? But I'd be quite curious to say, why would you have, I see what he's getting at, but why would you have lots of static methods and fields? Why not just have one instance of that class and not have anything static, right? So imagine you've got you can have a class, let's call it theme. I'm just going to use theme as a class theme. And inside that you have colors and you have textiles and other things. Now you can access them all statically, and you're just then using the class as a category of access, right? So then you can say like theme dot color black, or theme dot color white, whatever it is. However, you could also do a global instance at the top and say like const global const instance equals theme brackets, right? And that's going to construct a constant at compiler time called instance. And whenever you access instance, you'll be accessing those things. There's various ways of doing it, and it's purely, I would never do as class name. I mean, the real problem, the reason why globals have been an issue or have been talked about as being an issue in programming is about namespace collisions. That is, if you declare something at the top level, so that is a variable or a method, as you know, we can declare sort of global methods. That is essentially cluttering up that namespace. So if I had here's a good example. If I made a global function called compute, and I import that into my thing. Now I want to use the compute function from Flutter. I can't, because they both now
they will conflict.
They will conflict. And now you can change that. So when you import, you say as something, as you said here, as class name or as whatever, and that gives me a prefix dot that I can put before it to get around that conflict. So Dart provides that, but why put yourself in that situation in the first place? So it's more about the way you name things more than anything else, right? So
I will just go for a class.
I'll probably go for a class, but there are definitely certain instances where I want a public global helper method that I'm just going to have as a method in a file and that I want to import everywhere. There's also another thing that you can do, which might be more appropriate, is now we have extension methods. There might be a way of extending an existing class that you're using in your files and providing that scope to those variables.
Great.
And this is just, I want to bring this up. This isn't a question. This is just saying that obfuscation helps a little, but raw strings always show up as binary as is. So this is in reply. Oh yes, you're on Maya, one of the Flutter GDEs. Basically saying that exactly what I just said. I just want to mention that there is when you compile your Dart code, you can add -- obfuscate, which outputs a key file, and it's just like when you obfuscate any other language, it gives you symbol, what the input symbol is, or what the output symbol is. So when you're debugging, you get crash dumps. It will convert the garbage, sort of garbled like a.b.c gf or whatever, to whatever the package and path name is of the file in your project. So that kind of helps.
Thank you. Happy to see our GDEs here answering questions.
I think asked about.
He also said, he also agreed with us. He said either is fine, but I prefer the class approach for the importing. Cool. Any improvements, plans on how we can splash screen? How we can maybe develop a splash screen?
Make splash screen. There is actually a package. Random answer this Flutter native splash that helps, and basically you add like I think it's called like Flutter Splash to your PubSpec YAML file and give the attributes, and it will generate the files for you. But to be honest, if you want the perfect splash screen and like link into like how it links into your app, you have to go and manually do things, as far as I'm aware. But why not try it and see if it works? There's also in Android 12 or Android S, there's actually a updated mechanism for splash screens. I believe I won't find it now. I found it. There's, I'll put a couple of links in the chat. So there's one here which is, if it will do what I want, that's the official Dart page for splash screens, adding splash screens to your Android app. and at the bottom it talks about the new Android S stuff and how you deal with that. And there's also a page on for Android S. So Android S actually lets the app control the splash screen better, basically. So the better way of it linking up. I think you get a warning now if you compile 2.5 or above. If you use the old mechanism of splash, telling you to update your drawables or something. I forget. All right.
Probably.
Do we have any more questions? Oh, Stef's
Are you searching for cues? If yes, you're probably missing some.
Well, I'm looking for ones without cues, but we'll get there. Oh.
Yep. A Canvas kit folder was added in web build folder after 2.8 update. What is it? Before my folder size, I was only 3 megabytes, and now it's over 7 megabytes. Why?
So, just because the folder size is bigger, doesn't mean that's what your user has to download. Just want to say that right now, right? Like, just because your web build folder is maybe 50 meg, doesn't mean the user has to download 50 meg to see your app, right? There might be multiple variations. There's other things. Now, in this case, Canvas Kit is a rendering system. So there's a native widgets. There's a Canvas Kit approach, which is basically taking a HTML canvas and rendering all of your Flutter view to that HTML canvas. And then that often has the best results in terms of compatibility. And then there's another folder, there's another system which uses the native text elements of your browser, and various image tags and other things to do the same approach. They both have their pros and cons. And in fact, I think if you go to medium.com/Flutter, there is a Flutter announcement for 2.5, and that goes into detail about the differences between the two. I believe one is preferred on desktop, one is preferred on mobile, and it will detect your Flutter web project will detect if it's on mobile or desktop and use the appropriate one of the two for you. However, you can force always to use one or the other. Again, there's build parameters for that. For the life of me, I can't remember where they are or what they are. But yeah, that's it. I mean, there shouldn't be any problem with having it.
Yeah, I think actually that was the point of the question. The size and user gonna download it and so on. Probably you answered that, the worry. Yeah. Flutter web application. Google sign-in throws exception in iOS Safari because pop-up is blocked. Is there any way to run Google sign flow smoothly even pop-up is blocked like Chrome browser?
I've never seen that before, but it might be because you're running on local host, and local host is like a restricted domain. It should be okay on your normal, if you publish it to, let's say, Firebase hosting. If you're still having a problem, there's no reason why you couldn't do Google sign in using a iframe in your page maybe, or launch another tab to Google sign in, because it returns you back to the website. So there's definitely other approaches. I would look more into Google sign in for web. But if you're trying to use the Google sign in package for web, then you're limited, I think. I seem to remember it has like a launch mode, but I might be wrong. I think it was. I seem to remember Google saying it had like a modal or non-modal launch mode. It was a while ago since I need to see if I can find that package. The one time I want it, I can't find it or something. Google sign in web. Scopes sign-in option standard hosted domain client ID. It was sign-in option. I forget. Let me have a quick. If I can get up very quickly, I don't want to waste everyone's time. Sign-in options. Games standard. No, it wasn't that. I'm pretty sure there is a way. I know you can definitely do Google sign-in. So you can just launch a URL to Google sign-in. So I would suggest you go read up on the Google Docs to developer.google.com, and there'll be a section in there for Google sign-in. Sorry, hopefully that was helpful.
Yeah, hope so. Do you guys do consider doing any mentoring consultations, thinking about making Flutter app for FYP?
I have no idea what FYP is.
Yeah,
But that's great.
me too.
If you want to make an app, go for it. We don't necessarily offer like there's quite a few people in the community that are offering consultations. I just don't have the time to offer it. However, if you sign up to Patreon, I'll be doing hourly sessions on there, starting very soon, probably after the Christmas holidays. We'll start from January, where we'll be doing like sessions. I was actually also thinking, I'm going to get, I don't know how many people still watch. We've still got a good handful of people watching.
By the way, I got the abbreviation. Final year project at university.
Oh, nice. I was thinking about doing a stream on the YouTube channel where I just take people's code, and if it's publicly available, to say like they can submit the code, I review it and give them recommendations, which I thought might be like kind of like code review kind of thing. Like, so they say, oh no, it's better to do it this way in Flutter and show how like they can improve something, or oh no, this will have unintended rebuilds and show why that might work. So there might be like a code review segment where we just spend like an hour every so often and do like, but need people to submit. If anyone likes the idea, comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if people like the idea, we'll do that.
By the way, I was just disturbed by the cat. Can you just put me the backstage for only 1 minute?
Go for it. Oh, there we go. I'm on my own now. Oh no. I'll keep answering your questions. Keep them coming in while we got them coming in. Right. Cosmin said, I was trying to create a pop-up message. I had my run app, my app, and my app class was returning a material app, but the compiler was complaining about no material localizations found. Okay. So your problem is the my app build context, the build method, that context is above the material app. The material app supplies those material localizations. So the way to do this is you're at the moment using home. So on material app, there's a home parameter. Inside of that, wrap your widget, whatever widget is you're using for home screen, wrap it in a builder, and that will give you a context. And that context is from within inside, as it were, as the child of material app. And by using that context, you'll have all the material localizations you need. So there's another mechanism you can use that is to add a key, a global key to your material app widget. And if you use that in your state, then are we back? Ezra, hello.
Yes. Yeah, it was fast.
That's right. So you can add a key to your material app in a global key, put that in your state for your my app, and then you can do key.current context and use that context to launch your dialog, and then therefore it'll be using the context from within the material app as well. But to be honest, it's just easy. Just put builder widget inside of your home or material app, and it'll work just fine. Right.
Scott, where are you?
Yeah, right. Mohammed, I guess. Ahmed. I don't know. Ahmed. Yeah. I don't think it's the best state management package. Lots of people don't. But it's state management is not. It's architecture, it's framework, it's all sorts of things. People use this terminology wrong. So Gex is more a framework, if anything, and go ahead, use it if you want to use it. I personally wouldn't.
By the way, when reading the comments, I saw that John said, I saw Flutter as a front-end framework, which we already, answered about having it, the Next.js for React.
All right.
I think.
I mean, it is a front-end framework, but it's built on top of Dart. Dart provides a lot more. So it's Dart. So people talk about building a Flutter app, but you're using things like Dart.io, which is Dart math library. You're using all the Dart networking and HTTP and all this other stuff that's underneath the hood. So it's not just what you've got on top with Flutter.
Okay.
I think, sorry, I'm just going to bring this up. There's a little conversation going on.
Yeah.
The database have right back ends, if that's what you're asking. And it's like, so it's not just like you've got your front end and then you've also got a back end. So if you're trying to do a web service, you can definitely run Dart Just run Dart.
As a backend.
Yeah, there's you can run Scratch Docker containers running Dart. There's plenty of information online and articles on this. In fact, there was a couple of talks on the official Flutter YouTube channel, I think, around this. But yeah, you can launch Dart in the back end, and as I said earlier, you can actually launch it with your Flutter web app as part of the source code as part of it, and then it will host in your Docker container that you deploy wherever you want to deploy them, like Cloud Run, for example, Google Cloud Run. It will then host your Flutter web and your APIs for the backend, and it can all be written in one project, and you can run it locally as well. Questions.
There is some. Maybe I can. Okay, you find it already. How to make Dart file that's run each time I do popget. Is this even possible or something like this? You have, yeah.
Yes. So
of course.
There is a mechanism, and I can't remember what it's called. You have to do inside in PubSpec YAML, you add generate colon true, and that turns on the Flutter generator, and that runs a few extra steps when doing the Flutter pubget, and that generates synthetic packages. I don't think any notes have been released yet about this. However, it's all open source. You can go digging around and find it. I seem to remember reading something somewhere. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. You can definitely just do things with like build runner. So you can just there's a separate command. So like when you do JSON serializable, you can do Flutter pub run build runner build. I remember that often.
Yeah.
But it's that when you run that, it then generates code and stuff. So yeah, there's other ways of doing this. But we're coming up soon. The next, I'm hoping the next release, I don't know, we'll be starting looking at meta programming and this idea of doing this, which is where you're getting synthetic packages and code generation on the fly as you're editing your code, and it's giving you like an extra power to your coding. So that should hopefully solve your problem as well.
Do you have any scenario in your mind that you need to run a Dart file after you have a pubget?
Yes. So normally when you so pubget is pubget's the usual thing you do to get all the dependencies, and some of your dependencies can be with code generation. A lot of the time you just want to, like, let's say, pull in localizations, right? You want to pull in the latest localizations from your wherever they're stored, like could be Google Sheet for I know, but you might want to have a script run to grab that and produce Dart files for your code to use. There's other scenarios that I can think of that you'd want certain things to happen, maybe to go get the latest version numbers from your deployment repo, or to get the tag from GitHub and use that as your version number.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
There's all sorts of like scriptable things that you want to do to prepare your app for release, perhaps, and these are also coming to that. How to improve my Flutter development skills after completing the Apprentice book. Practice.
Yeah,
practice.
Don't forget to share what you do with the hashtag Flutter Apprentice with us. And you just need to go further.
I think I'd say from my experience doing Flutter now, I think 4 years, I don't know, 3-4 years, I don't know, a long time. I'd say challenge yourself. Give yourself a target, and if give yourself a target, say, I want to make a snake game, like from the old Nokia, whatever. Yeah. How do I do that? Go ahead and do that. And you're giving yourself something to practice on and something to do. So target something specific, and then again, don't feel overwhelmed. I don't know how to do it. How do we even bring up like a dot on the screen? I don't know. Right.
Yeah.
Step by step, like break it down, do little bits, and then the little bits make the whole. So that sometimes it's really difficult to see the road ahead when you're programming. Like you don't know what the next step is. But by doing the step in front of you, that tells you and informs you more information to make a choice about the next step and the next one and the next one. Now you might get to a point and go, that's not what I wanted. And then you can go back. And this is the wonderful thing about having like GitHub and repos and things where you can like take your code back to where it was and work ahead and work again. But you're learning. So each time you're doing one of those steps, you're learning something new, and you're expanding your knowledge. And when it comes to start again, or to start something new, or to branch off and do something else, you've now got all that knowledge that you've gained to lay the foundations of the next steps that you take. So I think practice.
I want to add something.
Different.
So also, what most of the designers put lots of free designed UI UX for lots of applications to show their design skills, and some of them also have light theming, dark theming. You can just pick one of them, develop as they do. So you will be definitely like working on a product. Then you will just write the functions by yourself, and you can go for pixel perfection. Then learn. You have to learn then the theming and so on to just support it. I think it can work. Because actually they are the challenges when designer makes some design and now you have to figure it out how to do it in the UI.
There's I one of the things I always recommend is going to like Dribble or one of these other places where you Dribble with 3Bs, dribble.com, where designers show off their, I made this design for like, I don't know, something. And you go, that looks so gorgeous. That animation is really nice. And it might just be one screen or a sample, but then you can try and build that in Flutter. And in doing so, you may not get there. You may not get to that target of doing that, but you've learned so much about animation or about colors or about theming or about something specific, and you'll build up that knowledge base.
Yeah, really good to just pick up a challenge. Okay, we applied this one.
Have we had this one already?
Yes.
No? Oh, yeah. It was posted twice.
Yeah. It's a thank you for us.
You're welcome.
Cool. Flutter web views still don't have complete support yet. Does these apps are not recommended? Flutter web views still don't have complete support.
So complete support is in what? Works for me. Works on lots of apps that I've worked on. So I'm not sure what you mean by not complete support. In fact, in 2.8, they just added WebView 3, which has lots of extras, and it supports web. So you're saying it's because web views didn't support web, because they do now. I'm not sure I could. Yeah, I could. Try to think if there's anything extra, but I can't think of anything extra. No, please tell us, if there's another point of view on that. Maybe not getting it.
Yeah.
Oh, he says he likes the.
It can be really funny, and why not? It's like code review show.
Could be. But, I mean, like the thing is, I can be critical, but I don't mean it in like a mean way, and I feel like hopefully it'll be taken as like advice and not as like criticism. If that kind of makes sense. I was like, I'm never going to say someone's code is crap because it's just be not the way that I would do it, because I've got more experience, right? So it's just a different approach. And I think like as long as you take every opportunity to learn, it doesn't matter if your code isn't the way someone else would do it. It's just another viewpoint, because if your code works, it works great. If it works and there's no like problems, that's it. That's all it. At the end of the day, no one. It's quite funny. You see all these big projects. No one sees what goes on behind that. You can see these massive company projects, and if you were to look under the hood, you'd be like, "Oh, I don't like that. I wouldn't do it that way. That's a bit dodgy. That is." Or but you don't know. They had deadlines. They had other reasons to do it the way they did. And as far as you know, they added a feature just for a month or two, and then they're going to strip it out. So they never put the time in to add tests or to perfect it or to do something, right? So there's you never know what goes on under the hood, and no one's app is ever perfect, ever.
And I can just say, you don't want to be criticized by Simon. Just say.
Was it Scott was saying the other day? I get to this point where I'm asking. I say, "Are you doing it wrong?" Right? That's what I say. You're doing it wrong, because there's a better way. I don't mean like you're doing it wrong. Like, I mean, there's a better way of doing it. Right? Would be a better way to say it. And then I sort of got to that point of saying, "You're not wrong, but." Because it's like your code works, and it's definitely a good way of doing it. But there's a slightly better way of doing this. So it's like, and again, better subjective, right? So.
And also everybody has different. Yeah. I was just saying, even just Simon just did some code reviews and suggest some improvements to the Craig's code that you see in the show. So
I think
There's always something to improve.
For me, it's more about imparting knowledge. I love to tell people things they don't know, because then that's going to make their lives easier, right? Like you don't. It's always the little things, and they add up. So when you know some of these, I don't know, always fundamental bits, you start to join the things together in your head. So just knowing another small little bit of information, helps you so much more than you think. It really does. Yeah. Let's
go.
Are there some more advanced Flutter topics we should learn? What are some of the more advanced topics we should learn? Animation is quite a good one.
Yeah, I was about to say animation.
Yeah. Paint. So there's a widget called Custom Paint. And once you know about how to paint stuff on the canvas, you can then sort of bring that in with animation controllers and actually animate like things on the canvas and some other things like that. Canvas is the ultimate, like, because you can do whatever you want. This is how all the game engines work. This is how Flutter works under the hood. Like, it's rendering pixels to a screen.
Yeah, maybe camera.
Yeah,
that part also.
There's always plugins. Plugins are always good. I'd say if you want to go for a really advanced, then start looking at render objects. So there were several talks online. I think there was recently a decoding Flutter one about render objects. I might be wrong.
Yeah, I also had lots of troubles when I was trying to work with maps in Flutter. I did it for my thesis project, and it was, oh my god, it was just a year ago, and it was kind of problematic to show.
Was that Google Maps?
Mark them. Yes, I think so. It was a bit hard to do, so yeah. Using polylines and so on, it can be good.
One of the best things I ever did. I probably can't tell you the app. I don't know if it's been released yet, but I did this app where I had to track the GPS location of a user on a map, and the problem was I wanted to do nice animations and other fancy things on the map, but the map is set, like, you don't have control because that map is a native platform view and your Flutter stuff is on top. So I did a frame tracking system where it would convert the bounding box from the Google map into coordinates and do a coordinate transformation, so I could place widgets and stuff on Google Maps. And when they go out of view, they get recycled, and they come in view, they're on the screen. So it kind of did this really nice sort of custom rendering system on top of the map. Something I do want to do is, again, maybe do Fresh and release it as an open source package, but I can't find the time. Anyway.
Probably.
Be nice.
What type of applications we should make with Flutter? Before before people were saying games, but I think we also level up in that front too. Could you give an example of isolates usage? This comes for you directly.
I mean, the one that's given in all the documentation, in fact, if you go look up, I think it's decoding JSON in the background, Flutter decoding JSON in the background. There's an article on the Flutter website which shows you how to do this. But basically, it's like any heavily computational task. So, for example, let me try and explain this. I'll try and keep it brief. If you're dealing with things like network, like receiving data from a HTTP request, you receive it in little chunks. And each one of those chunks is asynchronous. So you receive it, it's put to one side, and then it waits for the next chunk to come in. So your app is never stalled or waiting because it's doing things in little chunks. But if you had to do something in a long period of time, something that would take longer than one frame of graphics, then you'd see a stall in the main thread, and you'd see a skip of frames. This is why it's really important to keep the amount of work happening on the main thread down as low as you can, like stopping unnecessary rebuilds, make sure you're not re-rendering widgets when you don't need to re-render them, things like this. But that also means that if you're doing any computationally intensive tasks, for example, decoding like 5 megabytes of JSON data, well, why you want to download 5 megabytes of JSON data is another thing. Yeah. But let's say you had to like download a database or something, and you have to decode the data, decompress it, who knows what. That's a CPU intensive task, and that's going to take longer than a few milliseconds, right? You're talking about possibly a few seconds to do everything. Then you want to put that in isolate and do that in the background and then wait for the result. And that's the kind of thing that isolates are good for. And in that case, compute, done. You are most welcome.
Okay.
We try to keep
Thank
it
you.
positive.
After the last update, isolate sounds really good.
Good.
It will change the methodology of do things.
I'm not sure it changed the way I would approach things. I mean, I use isolates for I tend to use isolates for more things now, basically, because previously they had a latency, a startup time latency, and they're quite heavy. And now they're more lightweight, and they share the main code of the main thread as well. It means that you can kind of get away with doing more things in isolates and offloaded tasks. But it depends on what you're doing. Whatever you were doing before this computation intensive, you should be using isolates. You should continue using isolates. They're just quicker now. So I don't think I would go as far as decoding every HTML request JSON in a compute. I think for that, it feels like there's still a lot of overhead there. For most of the time, it's not necessary.
Let's see, what do we have? Hi, I want to put access images into navigation button bar in navigation. I think we have a bar item. You can just throw it as an icon.
You can just put a widget in each of the navigate. I think the thing here is you're using navigation bottom bar, which is the material mechanism of a bottom navigation bar. So it's got a prescribed way of working. But you can just make a bottom bar of a row. So you can just put like a material with a row inside and put icons in there and images in there for and do whatever you want. There's no limitation. You don't have to use the pre-made widgets for these things. You can just put whatever widget you want in the bottom of the screen and use that. And then you just handle like gesture detector or touch or use inkwell or these other widgets to give you like the splash effects.
You can just wrap the one with you need.
Yeah, that's one of the power. That is the power of Flutter UI, the composition pattern that it uses. It really makes things heavenly in terms of UI. I think this is from the web one. I think this was Android Web View File Picker does not work. I've never heard of that. But if it doesn't work, I think you're talking about the so in the latest release of 2.8, it now changes to hybrid composition mode, which enables quite a few things. This might fix your problem. So if you go to the latest version, if you go to pub.dev and look up the official Flutter WebView package, there's a bit in there about enabling hybrid composition mode. If you put that one line, which is I think Flutter, Flutter WebView plugin platform .instance equals web platform interface, something like that. It's one line of code that's in the README, and if you drop that in your current project, it will flip it over to using the composition mode, the hybrid composition mode, rather than the virtual display mode, and that might solve your problem. If it still doesn't work, raise a bug ticket, and we'll get some people on it. But to be honest, it's a difficult one. It's definitely a difficult one. Not many people in the community could fix that sort of bug.
Okay. Moomin asks, how do packages work? Will my app be slow or big if I use so many third-party packages? So what I can say here, like the packages is like classes, sub-packages, like interfaces that's written by other Flutter developers or, the team, the Dart ecosystem. You just, have it, and they are just allowing us to build up everything. Yeah, they're just, I can say, without having to build everything from scratch. We can just use the packages. It's really important to think about consistency, to check, whether the people who is just supporting that library is still supporting and updating all the time, how they are responding, how much bugs they have, are they, closing the bugs and so on. You just need to take care of it before using it. Do you want to add something?
I'm going to say Dart uses what's called a tree shaking compiler, meaning that it doesn't compile the code you don't use. So it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 files in your project and you only reference one with the main function. It only compiles the one with the main function. It will ignore the other 999 files because they're not being referenced. So there should be no reason with adding lots of third-party packages and all these things. So yeah, there's no direct problem. However, saying that, you get into a problem, and that problem is that's code you don't own and you don't know how it was built potentially, and you're adding complexity to your project, but for what reason? So it's a bit like you're importing an entire package.
Maybe just have for calculation function, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
a simple thing.
You might be trying to bring in a whole package for something like that, so it ends up being a few lines, the only bits you actually need. So why not bring those few lines in? Assuming it's open source and it's under Apache license, nice license. Bring that just that bit into your project, and place a comment above it saying where it came from, and then you don't have to depend on a package. And then if you want to update that and keep it going, you can. But for the most part, there's probably only for most projects a couple of a dozen packages that you actually would probably need. If you end up with you're using every package you can to get every feature, then you're depending on too much. What is your code then? What is your app if it's not just gluing together everyone else's code, right? And you'll also end up being that your code is working around how to use all the other packages and their way of doing things, and before you know it, you're changing the way you would approach the problem to work around someone else's package, when to just do it yourself would have been a lot simpler. So you want to be careful you don't sort of use too many.
Yeah, it can be really hard to maintain, and sometimes you just want to do some custom changes and you depend on one of the packages a lot because you think that it's easy in the first place. Then to get that feature or design done, you just need to write your own widget and do the lots of work.
I was going to say the other side of this is that you end up with you start using so many packages, they all have interdependence. They'll have each package has its own set of dependencies, and those are going to be pulled in as well. And those packages might have more dependencies; they've got to be pulled in as well. So it's not just the 12 or whatever packages you see in your code, but each of those depend on more and more packages, Yeah. What's really worse is the more packages you add to yours, the more likelihood it is there's going to be a collision. That is, they're both two different packages depend on different versions of a third package. And you get into this dependency hell where you're trying to resolve all these different versions and get them all work together. And you don't want that either. So you try and avoid that where possible.
Another question for you from us. Why we can't pass object isolate or compute function, or even in another isolate when I need image or something from files?
Well, there is a limitation on what you can pass. You can pass a lot now. In fact, if you need an image, you can pass an image. You can just take the bytes of the image and send it through. But the whole point, the word is in the name, isolate. It's isolated. It's separate. And because your main isolate and the second isolate are separate, you're sending messages back and forth. This mechanism of having two different memory spaces with messages sent back and forth is what makes it workable. Normal threading is working on one memory space with multiple threads. And that's what you can actually have is have, let's say, 4 threads all running at the same time, all accessing the same byte of data. What's going to happen? One thread writes to it. What thread reads what value? This is called race conditions, and you get synchronization issues, threading synchronization issues, and concurrency. And it gets really, really complicated, and there's so many bugs you get from that. So by just having the separate isolates and having the separate memory address spaces means that you solve literally all of the problems, and you will have way less headaches. The messaging idea of sending a message back and forth is super, super simple compared to the others. You thought it's complicated. No, trust me, it's simple compared to synchronization issues. So there is limitations, and those limitations are of what data you can send. You can send basic data across, like maps and lists and simple things like that, any of the base types. But also you can send an array of bytes, meaning that you can, or strings. That means you can take all your objects to JSON, serialize them, send that whole JSON blob across, unserialize them. Now you've got the objects on the other side in the other isolate. And the same goes for if you've got binary data, you can just chuck a uint8 list or an array of bytes across the message channel, and then you've got the image or the data you want to work with on the other side. But yes, it adds complexity, and that's why isolates aren't used that often, and the compute function is a way of just kind of like make it very sort of simple. But if you've got these really complex mechanisms of like doing all this complex stuff behind the scenes, which might be the meat of your application, like all the CPU intensities of like, I don't know, image filters or something, then that's the kind of thing you would want to do in an isolate where you're modifying the image. And in doing so, you then end up you're out of the range of what compute does for you. You want to do a custom isolate spawn interface, and that's where that link and topic I mentioned earlier, the Dart page, comes in handy because it talks you through how that all works. But it's a complex topic. There's no simple answer.
Yeah, thank you. And then just before going for the next questions, I can see some new people arise here. So I want to say, okay, welcome. We are just answering your questions about Flutter. Put Q in front of them, and we are just going for them.
We'll go for
Flutter Web View.
A few more minutes to get your last questions in.
Yeah. Flutter Web View applications, two-way communication, file uploading, and customized view for any website, like hiding headers and footers. How to do all of this in a better way in Flutter.
Flutter Web View apps, two-way communication, file uploading, customized view for any website, like hiding headers. So I'm really is it Flutter Web Apps or Flutter Web View Apps? Because Flutter Web View Apps is just like an Android app or an iOS app, which is a native app that has a web view inside. I assume two-way communication is communicating to and from the web view, which you do with JavaScript. And there's a way of doing that. There's JavaScript interface, which lets you send messages back and forth, serialized, of course, but you can send JSON. You can do JSON.stringify on JavaScript, send it back, and then JSON.decode on the Flutter side. File uploading is another thing. You could just have a button in your web view, and when you press that button, it communicates using JavaScript to your outside your web view, and then you just use the normal file picker from Android or iOS to pick your file, and then you can upload it using your normal Dart and Flutter code. Hiding headers and footers, I mean, you can inject JavaScript to hide that in the web view, or you can put your headers and footers in Flutter. But the problem here is, like most things, hybrid apps are a pain because you're dealing with a hybrid app. So in all honesty, you just want to drop web view in most situations. The speed at which you can build a Flutter app kind of puts it in the realm of, I might as well just do we call greenfield this, start afresh and say, here's the website. I might as well just rebuild that website in Flutter, because the time it's going to take me to do that, it was the same time it would take me to build a web view, do the communication, do all the access. So yeah, I mean, you might as well, a lot of the time, I mean, I don't know what you're doing exactly, but yeah, a lot of the time you might as well just do it fresh in Flutter and not worry about web views. It just adds extra layer of complexity.
Yeah.
Get your questions
Almost
in.
last time. Can you complain about Flutter? What are the things that isn't fixed and will be fixed soon or never fixed? I have one, I think, in the bottom sheet page. When you put lots of text fields and you want to open up the keyboard, it just, has lots of trouble to scroll content. You just need to go around, and now it's an open issue. Yeah, so we'll see what will happen. So.
I had a fix for that a long time ago. I think I did. So it's from my gists, I believe. I cloned the bottom sheet file from Flutter and just made the modifications and add a couple of extra booleans, like allow keyboard to be shown or allow like focus handling, I think it was, and a few other things. And I made some tweaks around it.
Do you have a tweet about it?
I don't think I have a tweet around it. I think I have I just did a gist. There might have been a tweet around it. It was an awfully long time ago. Let me see if I can.
Yeah, we just have a way around solution for it now.
Here you go. I don't know how old this is. I'll put it in the chat for everyone.
Okay, thanks.
Bottom sheet with input fields. Modal bottom sheet with input fields fixed for Flutter. Issue with overlapping with keyboard and fixing the tap into dismiss issue. 4 months ago was the last time I modified it. I might have updated it. 4 revisions. When did I actually make this? 29th of April, 2018.
Wow. 2018 to 2021.
Yeah, there's lots of gists. I whenever I create like a little something, I make a gist and chuck it up there. So there's probably lots of little things in there, little examples.
You
fun
have
things.
everything in your mind, and you're just throwing the links over us.
The
Love that.
I've been doing it a long time. I don't know if I'd say there's anything I'd have directly to complain about. There's certainly work to be done to make things easier, but it's. I'll tell you one thing, like I'd say image handling and image caching. I feel like that whole sort of, at the moment we're using Cache Network Image, which is the main popular package for this, but I kind of feel like having a file cache for images should be a part of the framework. If you're going to have a memory cache, you should have a file cache. I don't know. There's definitely room for improvement on a lot of things. But there's nothing that stops you from building an app or doing it yourself. I don't think there's anything. I don't think at the moment there's anything to directly complain about. The problem I've got, right, is I find it myself, because I have the knowledge in the Flutter framework, I can't put myself in a position where I can't do something. So I know that sounds big-headed, I don't mean that. But the point is, I can't put myself in the beginner position of saying, oh, this is really difficult. How do I do this, right? Or I wish Flutter just did this. Because I'm like, for me, I'm at the point of saying, it can do that. There it is, and it's like experience.
Love that.
I can't. It's like, because I know some of the inner workings, I can make it do whatever I want, if that kind of makes sense. And it's the point, I think, actually, in saying that, there was a point around not too long ago. This is before state restoration, which personally was one of my pet peeves originally, where you couldn't save your state from your Flutter app if your Flutter app got forcibly quit by the operating system. There was no safe way of doing it. And the way you do that now is Flutter offers a properly handled state restoration system where you can just restore your view state from where it was before. And yeah, that was a real pet peeve, because it meant that, you weren't, there was possibilities of it failing when you least expected it. And but now that's been resolved, and I feel like there's I think I mentioned this before, actually. Let me see if I can find it. If anyone actually is curious, I'll put the link in the chat. That is the Flutter design documents page, and this is what the team are working towards. All these things in here. Android migrations, Android Splash migration, plugin migration, project migration, building AARs, A11Y text, localization text attributes, autocomplete. These are all future work. Engine CPU profiling, engine artery, downward memory pressure. All of the design documents about features and things that they're working on in the Flutter team. It's huge.
Wow.
Loads and loads of them. And
this is okay, great.
If you've not seen some of these are all they want your input. They open them up here so you can see A, what they're designing, what they're working towards, but also B, to get your public. If you feel like something won't work, or you have these like a kind of a request for comments, you can go into the Google Docs and you can place a comment, highlight a word, and say, comment, I don't think this will work because of this, and this, and join the community.
Yeah. Also, when you're saying that isn't fixed and will be fixed soon, just join us to fix.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right?
Yeah.
So the I think actually I have the stats here. 1 second. The one time it's just around the corner. In the last version, 2.8. Here you go. In Flutter 2.8, there's 207 contributors. 178 reviewers that closed 2,976 issues and merged 2,424 PRs.
Oh my god!
Huge numbers.
Huge
and
numbers. Yeah.
This is the community, and the Flutter team doesn't have 178 reviewers. It doesn't have 207 contributors, right?
Yes.
This is where the community can handle and provide those extra resources and assets to help everyone. So you've got a problem, you can help make the fix, raise an issue, start a conversation with members from the Flutter team or others in the community, post your issue ticket that you've got on the community resources and get input from community members. And then if you can't solve it, some of the community might solve it, then they raise a PR and it gets merged into Flutter. Now everyone has that.
Yeah, and that's why we just, have a popular saying of there's a widget for that, and if there is not a widget, there is a package for that. So,
Right.
It's somehow supported.
Right. I think we've got one last question.
Are you going to do something like Android Compose theme, Figma to Compose? If you don't know about it, it generates code from the design. Actually,
It already exists. In fact, it existed before Figma to Compose.
Yeah. Also, there are lots of tools that who goes for, design to code. I was involved one of them. There are like Monday Hero, Supernova, and so on. There were some also startups for it. But
I literally just Googled Figma Flutter. There you go, Figma to Flutter plugin right there.
But even though when they generate the code, when you have a real code base, you just need to implement yourself there, because now you have your own widgets in your own way, in your own design. Actually, I checked some of them. They are really useful. They are really generates cool. If you really define what your widgets are, how you're generating it, and so on, it's really useful. When you have little changes, you don't need to do change a lot. But yeah, it can be super good for beginners in the first place. But in advanced level, it can be. Yeah, you probably have that widgets already that will be created from the code to design tool.
Oh, I think I found a really cool plugin I'm really interested in now.
Yeah,
Figma, Flutter Figma Preview. It says it downloads, it will obtain a PNG version of a component from Figma and display it in a half-transparent overlay on top of your widget. So this means that you can be developing your widget and getting your pixel for pixel, perfection. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
So you can get the specs and the rendering.
I'm the person who obsessed with the pixel perfect design.
So this can be handy. I've never tried it before. I don't know how good it is.
Yeah.
Looks interesting.
Yeah, I just bookmarked it. I'm gonna check it.
But yeah, there's lots of options. Right.
I'm not sure.
Block pan or provider for state management. Both. There you go.
Okay.
So provider is just a way of accessing data. It does provide like rebuilds when streams change or when the future changes and stuff like that. But block is to do streams is a different one. You can use both. There's no either or.
Maybe we can answer which one you are using. We are using provider. You?
Me. Block and provider actually in my last app.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So both is possible as you see. How to upgrade dependencies which can show breaking changes in our code base. Flutter pubget doesn't show at first those breaking changes.
Well, run your analyzer afterwards, and then it will show the errors in your analyzer.
Yeah.
And then you can upgrade them. The thing is, the best way to do it is I would say go for each one of your dependencies when you want to upgrade it. Go look at the changelog. That's what it's there for in pub.dev. The changelog will say, I've made this break-in change. We've removed this function and it's now replaced with this. So then you can use this
clearly
and just do it step by step. What you don't want to do is change all of your dependencies at once, like updating all the version numbers for everything in your pub spec and going, oh my God, they've got this massive mess of tangled stuff to deal with.
Yes.
How do I deal with these? Especially when those packages maybe interact in your code base. You don't know where to start. So pick a package, upgrade it, pick another package, upgrade it, do it bit by bit. What you should be doing then is making sure that your packages are being kept up to date, right?
Yes.
So that every week or every month you're doing a dependency review and going through and making sure it's up to date. You've got the latest bug fixes, you've got the latest improvements, because those bug fixes that library has, they don't make their way magically into your app until you upgrade that dependency. So you need to make sure they're kept up to date.
And also, maybe we can just touch that question before, so that if you don't have that much packages to use as third party, so that you don't need to go that much packages to see breaking changes and so on.
Exactly. You've only got 12 packages. You only have to do 12 dependencies then, right, at the top level. later.
Probably just 8 of them are updated at most, or maybe less.
Right. We've been going for an extra long time today, and since
Extra 1 hour, I think.
Yeah, it's fun, and this makes up for
Yeah.
maybe not coming back next week or whatever. So let's I don't have a Jingle Bell song or anything like that to play. I'm not sure if we get copyright strike on that or something like that. You know?
I don't want to get copyright for 3 hours.
No, exactly. So I think we'll just leave everyone with the ending music and wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year if we haven't spoken to you before.
Yes. See you in the Hump Day Q&A. Come on.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.